Yeah, I wouldn't say it's that much. That much different to Germany.
Yeah, we were at Applebee's. It's a restaurant, and it was kind of a typical American restaurant because there were sport pictures on the wall, and the atmosphere was so nice. It was like kind of they're all talking, and then comes the assistants and say her name, and it was like what? It was so different, but it was so cool, and the food was so nice. I really liked it.
Yeah, I think I also went to American restaurant on Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the malls they have. It's so like we don't have such malls. We have small like stores, but we don't have these malls.
What I've noticed that lots of Americans don't lock their door over the day.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird because everybody's doing this in Germany.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing that in Germany.
Yeah.
And what's also, well, it was really weird at the beginning that you can drive a car when you're 16. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest difference to Germany because you have to be 18 when you want to get your driving license in Germany. And it was kind of weird at the beginning because my exchange partner is 17 years old.
Okay.
And one time we drove over to a friend,
Mhm.
and it was just weird to know that like the man who's sitting next to me is only 17 and he's driving
Yeah.
a car, and I'm sitting next to him and he's responsible for this car.
So I really enjoyed this place, and it was so nice to see the people and what they eat and what they think, and they're so nice to each other. So I really liked it, and you?
Me too.
So thanks
Thanks
for
for
watching
watching
WOW
WOW
TV.
TV.
Hi, I'm Simone and I'm a German exchange student.
Hi, my name is Emily and I am one too. We're both from Langen, from Germany, which is pretty in the middle of Germany. Well, Langen is. And we're both from the same school, which is called Dreieckschule Lang. And I am here for my first time in America.
And I'm here for my second time. I've been to New York 1 week before.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about our first impressions, which we got when we came here to America. And you want to start off?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, there you go.
The first thing we had to go through was the immigration line. And our teacher was like, yeah, we're going to be through that in like 45 minutes, but no, we've waited like 2 hours to get through there. So that was like my first impression, a lot of waiting in America. But we got our suitcases very quick,
Yeah.
except for one, he lost it.
Well, that happened.
Yeah. But it was actually, for us when we arrived, it was pretty late in the evening. And when we got out, it was like sunshine in the middle of the day. And it was like, that's when it hit me, like we're in another time zone.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, probably my first impression was people being friendly. Like in Germany, people are not very friendly. If you ask them something, they'd be like, yeah, this is the answer, but they wouldn't really want to help you. But in America, I had a question at the airport, and I was looking for someone to help me, and actually that person came up to me and was like, you look like you need help. What do you need? Can I tell you where to go? Can I give you something? Can I help you? Anything. And that was my first impression, and I thought that was really nice. And probably my second impression was wow, because we went into the yellow school bus.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a funny thing. We don't have them in Germany. We have like the normal, they're not really comfy buses, and the yellow school buses, everyone knows them all over the world. If you talk about America, probably first thing that pops up in your head would be the yellow school buses. And I must say they're very comfy, and I thought it is just amazing how many school buses are driving around. Like, you see them everywhere. And yeah, that was kind of funny.
I also was impressed with the weather because one day it was like snowing. It was really snowing and it was so cold, and on the next day we had like around 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know.
Celsius?
Yeah, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit.
Probably 50, 40, 50. So.
Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, June 6th at 5 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Oregon Village Board, which I would like to call to order and request roll call, please.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Brethauer,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
Poole,
Here.
Staten,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Grenier.
Here.
Thank you. We're all present and accounted for. Our first item of business, number 3, is a swearing in and approving a salary for position of the new police sergeant, Cindy Newbert. We will do the swearing in, so if you want to meet me right up here. Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Cindy M. Newbert, do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America,
I, Cindy M. Newbert, do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Wisconsin,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Wisconsin,
the charter, laws, and ordinances of the Village of Oregon,
the charter, laws, and ordinances of the Village of Oregon,
the rules and regulations of the Village of Oregon Police Department,
the rules and regulations of the Village of Oregon Police Department,
and the law enforcement code of ethics,
and the law enforcement code of ethics,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a sergeant in the Oregon Police Department.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a sergeant of the Oregon Police Department.
I will assume my duties as of 6/19/2016.
I will assume my duties as of 6/19/2016.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Sergeant Newbert.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations again.
That's a good point.
It's a sad point.
It's a sad point to trim.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that night I walked away mad.
I'm just trying to figure out where in.
Oh, right. Right over on the side.
Is that 20?
Yeah. Chief's all stepped up too.
So, I'm just gonna present Cindy with the new badges. She's moving up in rank to the sergeant, gets a little more gold on the badge. Congratulations, Cindy. Got it?
Make sure it looks good.
Alright. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the process. Let's see.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
There you go. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Just don't see those folks.
Nice of Ricky.
So if the board doesn't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about the process.
Please.
We changed the process up a little bit, obviously since before I was here. And so the process began with everyone that was interested needed to submit a letter of interest and a resume to me, or to the lieutenant, actually, she was in charge of it. And then what they had to do then was to complete an essay portion of the exam. And that really consisted of 3 questions that they had up to 2 pages to write for. And it dealt with morals and leadership questions. After that, they had to deal with an outside interview panel And that consisted of 2 lieutenants and a captain from agencies around the area here in Dane County. And that provided us with some outside feedback on the candidates. You know, we know them internally, but we'd also like to have some outside feedback on what they have. And then after that, they had an in-basket exercise. That was an interesting venture, I think, for most. Cindy can attest. It was very challenging. I gave them an hour to complete 16 different tasks that had to do with time management, prioritization, prioritizing calls as far as, you know, what they're going to do now. Are they going to delegate? And they were basically assigned as a new sergeant in their new position, but it was for a different department. So they couldn't use what we do now in the Oregon Police Department. Was what that organization was made of. So it was really challenging for them, and it was interesting to say the least. But Cindy did a good job on that as well. And then we had an admin interview process, and that went very well as well. The questions were different. What I tried to do this time was, we all know that interviewing is kind of an imperfect science. And so what I did was I created, part of the process was to not only to answer the questions, but the interviewers had to rank it based on the criteria that was involved. So they couldn't just say, well, I thought she did a good job, I'm going to give her a 7 or whatever it is. They had to meet the criteria and that was involved. So I think it standardizes the process a little bit more. And then I took the results of that whole process, added that up and scored them, and then took that to the police commission, reviewed the process with them, and then they certified the eligibility list. And so throughout that whole process, Cindy did an outstanding job. She was, you know, I think #1 and throughout the whole process itself. So I want to congratulate her for her dedication to the process, for her dedication to the police department and the community. As you know, she's been involved with many different events here in the community. She's been an outstanding officer, you know, before I even came here, and she's continued to do that work since I've been here. So I appreciate that effort, and I want to congratulate you again.
And I would just comment, I've worked with Cindy on projects through the school and community stuff. She's always done a nice job and is very committed to the community, and that's very important. So congratulations for coming through a very stringent process. Nice job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so item 4 is public appearances, of which we have none listed tonight. Item 5 is from the April 7th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting, and this will be led by Trustee Carpenter.
Sure. So this is discussion with a fiduciary, which the folks are here, regarding the location of water and sewer utilities for Lot 504. Possible action regarding the location of these. We're not going to be voting on the general development plan tonight, but do you want me to make a motion on this right now for discussion, or just discuss with these folks? You want me to read your village administrator's note?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, would like to mention that village administrator says, I support the board approving the location of utilities proposal as outlined in Director of Public Work Jeff Rao's memo. This arrangement is similar to the way the village will service the sewer interceptor, which is adjacent to Badfish Creek. In the future, the village will build a bike/pedestrian path over the interceptor to provide access for sewer maintenance.
Thank you.
So who would like to talk first?
Jeff?
Fine.
Oh.
You want to go ahead, Mike?
No, I was saying, I think maybe, Jeff, you just want to maybe review your memo a little bit for background for the board and.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, this project, it's kind of been one of these ones that's kind of morphed as we've gone along. Fiduciary can kind of catch up on the history of the lot and plan development for it. But the issue before really has always been that when Bergamot Boulevard went in and when this lot was originally platted, there was really, I think, planned for 106 or something like that, kind of condo style apartment.
Multifamily.
Yeah, multifamily
Right.
uses up there. So there was really only one main, water main to this site, and there was only, the sanitary only went to the downhill side of the project. Since then, they've looked at looking at developing this into, I believe, a 32? 26. Okay, so 15 lots along Bergamot and the rest along what would be Interlochen, future Interlochen. And of course, that came down to, well, how are we going to serve that with sanitary and water? This, we maintained quite a long time that the utilities should be kept within the right-of-way and within the roadway. That is at a cost to fiduciary because they would be having to tear up Bergamot Boulevard. We've kind of gone around and around with a bunch of different things. What we've kind of come together as a compromise is locating these utilities in an easement outside of the public right-of-way. The one thing that we've held firm to that we believe is that we want to be able to have drive-up access to the manholes to be able to serve those in the future with our vac truck. So what we've proposed, and I believe we've kind of come to a conclusion on or an agreement on, is an 11-foot wide access path that would be, what, about 12 feet off the back of curb, 15 feet off the back of curb? 14 feet off, well, sorry, 16 feet off the back of curb. And that would allow access of the vac truck along that path to be able to access the sanitary sewer, and the water main would then just be on the other side of the path. So that's kind of what we've come to. I don't know if you guys want to.
Can I say one thing, Ginny, before?
Yes.
So the one thing, I don't know if you said at the beginning, was when the motion that came from planning on the GDP was to put the utilities in the right of way. But Jeff and I didn't really think of this pedestrian path idea until after the meeting, so that's why we're presenting it tonight this way, so. Sorry.
Good, and I think our only input is we appreciate, obviously, I think it was about 4 months back, we came in front of you with the GDP, so again, we're looking forward to getting moving on that again. Appreciate the work put in here by Jeff, by Mike, and everyone to work with us. I think it's going to be a really nice amenity of this, having this path in addition. I think it really fits the neighborhood well, so I think we've come to a good solution. We appreciate it.
So I talked to Matt about this last week, and that if the board approves a motion tonight, then this will have to be dealt with in the developer's agreement for the project.
Yeah, and we'll have to decide how we'll handle the path, whether we'll want that to be shown on the plat, or whether we'll want a separate easement agreement. There are probably a couple of different ways of approaching that. Not sure.
So do you want me to go ahead and make the motion? So I am going to make a motion. Trying to figure out how to word this. To follow staff recommendation on locating the water and sewer utilities in this project.
Second.
That's good.
Okay, so that would put it with the 11-foot wide asphalt bike and pedestrian trails, so that seems to work for fiduciary. Very good. And for us?
And actually, I should say, I know Mike Slavny also supports the idea. We talked to Mike about this about a month ago, so.
Good. Any further discussion or questions from trustees? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Like you're on the move.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6 is Village Planner Mike Slavny's report on discussion and possible action on adopting ordinance number 16-15, an ordinance to repeal and recreate Article 8 of Chapter 17 of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances related to sign regulations. We'd waive the first and second readings and move for adoption. Requires a 2/3 vote of the board. So we'll let Mr. Slavny and Jackie go ahead.
Good evening. I'm here with my colleague Jackie Bish, and we've been working on this with the village for a year and a half. All existing signs and sign structures are grandfathered under this code, so no signs will have to come down as a result of adopting the proposed code. The code provides more flexibility and more area for business signs because we regulate freestanding signs separately and in addition to on-building signs, and right now they're regulated together. The new code will prohibit 3 kinds of signs: billboards, tall pole signs, and illuminated projecting signs, the old-fashioned beer signs. We allow other kinds of projecting signs, but they're smaller scale. Any projecting sign that's up now or any pole sign is grandfathered and can remain unless it's structurally altered, and face of the sign can change in its appearance.
And Mike, not to slow down your momentum, but for clarification, are you referring to permanent signs in everything you've said to this point?
I'm referring to all signs so
including
far.
temporary signs?
Correct.
Including signs such as election signs, A-frame signs that might be stood up outside of a building?
I'll get to those.
So we're not talking about those right now?
We're not talking about grandfathering temporary signs.
Okay.
Correct. The code was in fine shape in September of 2015 when we took a look at a July 2015 Supreme Court decision that said we could no longer classify signs based on their content. And our ordinance, the current ordinance, and every other ordinance I've ever seen in the country create special sign categories like real estate sign or garage sale sign or special event sign, and had special rules for those, which was really convenient and provided a lot of sign-specific flexibility. We can't do that anymore. So we went back to the drawing board with Attorney Dregny's strong assistance and came forward with a draft code in mid-September that met the Supreme Court ruling called Reed versus Gilbert. We presented that draft to the Chamber of Commerce, and Judy has been wonderful to work with on this. We made some refinements and came back again during the winter, and then came to the Plan Commission earlier this spring. In addition to those changes that I mentioned, I believe the new code is much easier to use than the existing code. We provided some sign tables where that's really the only place anybody has to look to see what the rules are affecting the kind of sign that they're proposing. There's no need to wade through the ordinance text to learn everything about that kind of sign. And we have a table for permanent signs for businesses, permanent non-business signs, temporary signs for businesses, and temporary signs for other uses. One question that has come up, and because of the Reed v. Gilbert decision, we don't have the ability to create flexible rules, is the treatment of signage, temporary signage for special events or other kinds of special activities. Under the previous code, the current code, off-premise signs are prohibited, and that's what the proposed code says. So those signs have been used in the past, and they've been used on a reoccurring regular basis. I think generally they've remained under control. I've never heard any complaints about special event promotional signs, but they weren't allowed under the previous code, and they aren't allowed under this code. And I think there may be the possibility of making some adjustments or accommodations on what this code calls institutional information signs, which is a institutionally sponsored sign like the village or the chamber, where special event notifications can be provided. We've got one of those on North Main Street now, provided by Union Bank and Trust, and we've got the chamber sign on the south side of the community, but other signs like that are allowed. But I would recommend that, recognizing that we may still have work to do on that, I would still recommend approving the proposed code. I know businesses are waiting for it to be adopted. It does provide more signage, more flexible signage. It allows more different kinds of signs. And so although it's not making everyone happy, I don't know that we'll ever get there. And I think the community would benefit by its adoption, recognizing that there will be some fine-tuning that's needed over the years. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Yes, and forgive me if you've already covered this, but there's just a lot of information just now. How does this affect vehicles that have been wrapped?
It does not.
It does not.
No, this sign code does not apply to signage on vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
How would you visualize treating some of these loose ends in the future?
Well, I think that we know of one, and that's the temporary event signage. I think that staff would provide a recommendation to the Plan Commission and use the commission as the working body. And perhaps with input from the chamber, they've been great to work with. But rather than bog down the village board with the issue, which would be the case if this code isn't adopted, I think that the Plan Commission is the right working group.
So that refers to the letter from the Oregon Straw Hat Players and the temporary event like that?
Right, and this has been an ongoing discussion.
Yeah.
And we just haven't figured out a way to allow off-site signage for special events and not allow off-site signage in general, because we can't base our rules on the content of the sign. So that's the rock and the hard place that we're struggling with.
Okay.
And I think to reference the packet that we have in front of us that the public has access to, on page 20, you lay out the purpose of the signage ordinance proposal, I think very well in section 1, A through G. And rather than read through it, I think it makes a good case for the importance of having a good, strong sign ordinance, and for limiting the amount of signage that can be put up and where the signage can be put up, again, for all of those reasons. So I know that that might leave some organizations with a short-term problem, because this is something they've always done. But I feel that if they were to work with Judy at the chamber on marketing, they might actually find more efficient, more effective ways of marketing than the ones that they've been using, while we continue to think about how we can re-engineer the ordinance to try to include more residents.
Yeah, personally, I would be in favor of looking, as we go forward, what are some ways to help some of these temporary events advertise what they're doing and still make it fair to everyone. And obviously, that's a sticky thing to do, as Mike has already said, but I'd like to know that at least I stand there. I think the board would too, just kind of knowing how people are, that and these things are valuable to our community. We don't want an issue to cause that to go away, but I think I agree with Jeff that there are other ways of marketing that might be more effective that aren't being done now. I don't know, but work with people to make that happen. So there has been a lot of work going into this ordinance, a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of energy, and Mike did this once. I'd like to do it again, but a special thanks to Judy Knudsen for her work on this. This came up how many years ago, Mike? Quite a few.
Well, actually, it came up back in '07 when when we did the zoning code.
Yeah.
We decided no way we're going to be able to do both at the same time, even though the sign code's in the zoning code. We decided to push it aside, and we ignored it for a while.
Yeah, and I think I recall being told that sign codes can be pretty difficult to do, challenging, so maybe we should wait a bit. But and this has not been easy in the scheme of things, but also it's been much easier than I think anticipated.
I think the key is we took our time.
Yeah.
And we went back to the chamber, I think, at least twice, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, people had a chance for input and to listen, and Mike and Jackie presented, and the Planning Commission talked about it, so that was all done in a very good way, I think, and that's helped that process along. So now we're at the end point.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
If the issue with the A-frame signs and those signs that are on the Straw Hat Players memo have been issues that have been brought up since the process started, I'm just curious as to why they weren't looked at then or ongoing, and all of a sudden now we're going to say, well, we're going to go look at them going forward.
Well, they have been looked at, and I don't see an easy solution to the problem unless the village makes the policy decision to authorize off-premises advertising throughout the village. Because if we are going to allow one group to advertise special events, for example, on various properties throughout the village, there isn't a way that we can do that that is selective, that picks, who can do it and who can't. We either have to open the door and let everyone do it, or close the door and say that's not the kind of advertising we'd like to see throughout the village. So I don't see, I mean, we have discussed this at both the staff level and at the plan commission, and so I wouldn't characterize, maybe Mike sees it differently, I wouldn't characterize us as being in a position where we think there's a ready solution to this problem that we just need a little more time to work out. I think we've come to the conclusion that it's a tough nut to crack. And I think the answer is either organizations will need to find ways to adjust, and there are other options other than putting signs up at different places, or if the village wants to revisit the issue of allowing off-premises advertising and opening the door, we could go there. But right now, the direction I think we've been given is at the plan commission level, and it has been that they didn't want to open that door. And I think, as Mike said, I mean, that's not been allowed. That violates the current code. It has occurred to some extent in violation of the current code. But we didn't want to introduce it now as something that was allowable as of right in the new code.
Would it be easier to do without the Supreme Court decision, Mike?
Oh, yeah, we could just create a category that said special of community event signs and say they're allowed everywhere up to, 40 square feet or 72 square feet and in any business district, and we'd be home free. It's made it extremely difficult, and the problem with the off-premises signs is I don't think we'd want in residential neighborhoods people putting up signs that advertise a deal on cigarettes, in Monona, or a sale at the liquor store in Sun Prairie. I mean, that's off-premise advertising. So it's a very steep, very slippery slope in terms of off-premise advertising. And I'm hoping for a court decision that somewhat refines the Supreme Court decision. Matt isn't confident that'll happen, but we think we're one of the first communities in the country to have a complete sign code following this Supreme Court decision. And Jackie and I are monitoring that situation. The other potential is if we can't think of a way around this, maybe another community will. I'm hopeful about getting to the point where we can address this concern, but right now we've been looking at it since September, and we haven't thought of any way to wrangle that issue, and we haven't seen anybody else provide an example of how to do it either.
Also affect garage sale signs?
No, because those would be on premise.
Well, but if I put it a block away at the corner, then I would be in violation.
Right, and that's the case now.
Okay, so Chief, how are you gonna police this?
Well, maybe I can speak to that. At the planning commission level, we talked about that at length, and that all of those signs are illegal now. But all of those signs tend to be really, really temporary.
Right.
So we just, I don't want to say we don't enforce it, but we hope they're really, really temporary. And by really, really temporary, I mean they're up for a few days and then they're gone. And I don't want to create a code where we're asking our staff not to enforce it, but that's the current situation that we're in. Let's face
I don't know
it.
if anybody knew that it wasn't allowable under the current
Oh, okay.
ordinance. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I don't know either. We've been talking about it since September, so I've known since September. But I just wanted to let you know, the Planning Commission has talked about that at length, and like staff, we can't figure out a way to do it other than hope that temporary signs are really, really temporary, and that maybe staff won't have time to run out there and take it down before it comes down.
And actually, I have a somewhat different take on it. I mean, I think this is something that staff is going to have to continue to evaluate in terms of what kind of resources does it have and does it want to dedicate to enforcement. And so, as with other enforcement scenarios, I think the issue is not going to be, well, we're never going to enforce as long as it's only up for a little while. I think the issue is going to be, do we have the time? Are we getting complaints? Is it in a location that's particularly problematic? You know, there's going to be a host of factors that staff is going to have to evaluate to decide, you know, when is it appropriate to dedicate the resources to enforcement, and when are those resources better deployed elsewhere?
Yes, Matt said it much better than I did.
And I would agree. I would think that would be pretty much based on the time we have and the complaints that we receive, because we certainly don't have enough time to drive around in neighborhoods and pick up signs that aren't near their houses.
Yeah, and if you look ahead in our packet to the police reports and what they deal with, this is way down the list. I would guess we have a lot of ordinances that aren't enforced. I would guess most communities do, just because they're there and there's not time, there aren't complaints, and so it doesn't happen, because there are a lot of ordinances. There's a lot of stuff on the books.
I
play the
haven't
opposite
been
side of
picked
that-
up for jaywalking in years.
To play
Yeah,
the opposite
right.
side of that card, though, that shouldn't be interpreted by the audience as a green light to go out and violate ordinances
Correct.
Correct.
at will.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
because they'll be enforced if they need to be.
part of this process has been an education process, and purposely so. I mean, built into this was a desire to educate people about what the rules are, and we hope that we'll see, by and large, voluntary compliance, and then there'll be relatively few instances where there would be a need for enforcement. So, yes, whereas this is not an invitation to test the limits.
Right.
I just have a question though. Okay, there's there's be church dinners, the blood drive. Okay, so none of those can be put up then, right? Okay, if we vote against this, is there any way that this can be put back? We can turn stuff around, and so that like the Straw Hats can have their sandwich board, or the churches can have their dinners, or the blood drive can have their stuff.
Yes, but the answer, you might not like the answer. I mean, so the choice to make here is whether to modify the ordinance so that all organizations can put up their advertising throughout the village, and that's allowed. So that's the question. Is that the kind of door that you would want to open? It's never been opened. Well, it's not the case under the current ordinance that that's allowed. It has occurred to some extent. Is that something that you'd like to allow? Because we haven't found a way, and the Supreme Court's decision makes it impossible to find a way to, for example, say this kind of sign promoting this kind of event can be put up as long as it's only kept up for 48 hours before the event and taken down 24 hours after the event. That's exactly the kind of sign regulation that was found unconstitutional in the case that you heard about. That particular community had an ordinance that looked at different kinds of signs that were temporary, and there were different rules relating to those different kinds of signs, and the sign that was at issue in that case actually involved church services. It was a church that didn't have a permanent location, and they would have their services at a different location at different Sundays, and they found it convenient to put signs up. And the ordinance in that particular case treated them a little differently than other kinds of temporary signs, and that organization sued the community because they couldn't put up their signs. Their signs had to be a little smaller, they couldn't be up quite as long. That organization sued the community, and the court found that particular regulatory framework was unconstitutional. One way of thinking of it is everyone has to be treated the same, regardless of what kind of event or sign they're putting up.
So if we don't adopt the new code, all of those signs that you mentioned, Darlene, they're not allowed under the rules that we have now. So it wouldn't help them, it wouldn't help those organizations out in terms of, if we don't adopt the ordinance, those signs don't become legal, they remain in violation of the current rules.
Mike, just to clarify though, one thing is they're still allowed, you could still have a temporary sign, like a frame sign, in, as long as it's not in the right of way, you could put it, you could ask for permission to put it on someone's property and have that sign there temporarily as a frame sign, correct?
No. Because it's an off premises.
That's just off premises, okay.
But it's something though for, you know, when people come into town for something, it's if, you know, we're not that big, we're not a small community, we're not a huge community, but if somebody is coming in for something and they don't know where it is, the signs help a lot. I guess I don't know, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I think the suggestion has been that there's been a lot of work going into this. They have looked at the situation that you're talking about. We have some concerns about that, but that they've looked at that, did not find a solution. I think the recommendation is that we need to approve what we have before us tonight as a sign code, and then look at this more if there's any way to make it happen. And I think Matt made it pretty clear that it's a difficult situation. So the answer may be that, yeah, we may look at it, but there may not be anything we can do either. So
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
One thing the sign code does allow for is in districts that are zoned institutional. That would be, for example, a property where you've got the school or the village hall. It could be a parcel that the chamber owns that has its sign on it, for example. You can have informational signs on institutional zoned property that could advertise events that are taking place at other locations. And so one of the things that could be explored as a community, working with the chamber, working with the village, working with the school district, would be, for example, are there locations that would be appropriate for institutional zoning and informational signs of that sort that would create a space and an opportunity for that? Now, I'm not sure how many opportunities exist today, but that can be evaluated. That's a vehicle that's available through this ordinance.
I do have a request for a person in the audience to speak. We normally don't grant that, but in this situation I will. So but you need to come to a microphone, please. There'll be made room right here. So thanks, Mike and Jackie. And we do expect to be pretty short.
All right. Oh, get back here. Thank you. There. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm John Unertle, live at 382 Lynn Trail, and I'm here representing the Oregon Straw Hat Players. Let me just say that we've been operating in the village for 35 years, nearly 35 years now, and producing plays and educational opportunities for the community. And we've been using A-frame signs with commercial and property owners' permissions, and it's been quite successful. Some of the things that I heard in the discussion, and I appreciate hearing some of that discussion. I've been working with Mr. Slavny for a while and trying to come to solutions, but I was really never clear what some of the issues that were trying to be solved with the new ordinance, and I wasn't aware that the prior ordinance had some of those restrictions that were discussed tonight. But let me just say that we find that it's very helpful for our organization as well as other organizations to be able to continue that practice. We put ads in newspapers and pay for those, and it reaches part of the audiences, and we do get, things in what's happening in Oregon, again, in the newsprint. But many of those avenues only reach a certain part of the audience, whereas the signs pretty much reach anybody who comes in and out of the village through a vehicle. And these signs are important to our organization and other organizations, such as the blood drive that was mentioned, and some of the church groups. And we really do need the board to come to some way to make these practices legal and acceptable. it was brought up about a floodgate if we allowed temporary signs to be posted off-site, and I'm confused by that statement because in the 35 years that we've been doing it, we have not seen any signage that has created difficulty in the community. Again, it wasn't allowed, but I believe most people in this community weren't aware of the ordinance, and allowing off-site signs, I don't think would open up the floodgates to issues for the community, as well as sandwich boards. I'm not sure why those are disallowed under temporary but allowed under permanent. If an issue is that they blow away, we've come up with a solution by staking those so that they would not blow away. And again, I would ask that the board either make the changes to allow off-site here, or, and I understand your issue about it's been a long haul, but we've only been able to enter into real dialogue in the past couple of months. And I would ask that the board either make that change or that it go back to committee, and that the committee work hard with the community-based organizations and other interested parties to come up with a solution so that we can have an ordinance that works for the community, doesn't create a blandness, but creates a vibrant community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us?
Anyone? Questions? Thank you. Yeah, one more, as long as it's something new.
Pastor Paul Markwart, St. John's Lutheran Church here in Oregon. Of course, we would be part of those events, the church dinner kinds of things. Those are something that we participated in, apparently, in breaking the ordinance. But I guess not having had the chance to, I was looking for the documentation on all of that, and so and I couldn't find it. And that maybe that I just didn't have enough time to kind of look to find where I needed to be. But when you're talking about temporary event signs, but I was wondering, what kinds of temporary signs are allowable? We're in the process of selling our house at the moment. Does that mean the real estate sign that's a temporary sign is not considered, or is not considered a temporary sign, even though that is very much what it is? If it's a content sign, and it can't be discriminated because of content, why is that allowable where another sign is not? Or is it the shape or form? So that's the question. Those are questions that I have. And then again, what is you talk about off-site, but if there's permission from a property owner to be able to offer something of that nature, why would that be prohibitive? Those are the questions I've got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'll tackle those one at a time. And the second one I might need help from Mr. Slavny on. So your question about temporary, for example, for sale signs, if you're selling your house, or an election sign, for example, the ordinance does allow what we call, or what the ordinance refers to as a yard sign. And you can put whatever you want on your yard sign, so long as it's not commercial advertising, as I recall. So, for example, you have a certain amount of yard sign space that you can utilize at your home to put up an election sign, a for sale sign, a garage sale sign, really anything you want. The ordinance says nothing about content, with the exception of prohibiting off-premises commercial advertising. Okay, so that's the yard sign category that facilitates temporary signage, and I think that's in all zoning districts, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be commercial property or residential property. Everyone's entitled to one yard sign. I think we have a broader during and up before and during campaign season, I think you have up to 4 yard signs that you can use. And again, you can use them for anything you want, but the thinking is that during campaign season, there's a desire to have more space available for putting up signs in your yard than at other times of the year. So we're not regulating content, but there is at least a recognition that there's a higher demand for signage during that time. The second question, I'm not remembering exactly what it was. Do you remember?
Property owner permission.
Oh, property owner permission, yeah. So, that would be required, of course, regardless of what the sign regulation says, but the basic judgment, I think, that's made by this sign code and the policy issue is whether or not to allow off-premises advertising. And so property owner permission, it may be that the property owner says, sure, you can go ahead and advertise on my property some event that you want to hold on someone else's property or on your property. The policy judgment for the village is that something the village wants to allow in its code? And again, it's up to the board to decide. I think the reason the ordinance is drafted the way it is, you know, I'm not predicting that there would be a flood of signage, but clearly there would be at least an opportunity for off-premises advertising. And so the policy judgment is that something that the village would like to authorize or not? The way the code is currently drafted, it's not authorized. And maybe, Mike, you could speak to the policy implications of allowing that or not allowing that. I'm not necessarily qualified to speak to the policy implications.
Well, it's been our experience in communities that allow off-premise signs is they proliferate, and any property that has visibility is constantly selling the right to put up that off-premise sign on that property. And so you maybe increase the amount of signage in the community by a third, by 50% in the business districts. In addition to the yard sign that Matt mentioned, for that church dinner, for example, the church gets 40 square feet of board sign or banner sign on their own property, just like they do now. So there are the same provisions in the code for on-site temporary signage. So we've really kept the temporary sign rules generally consistent with what we've allowed in the current code. We haven't changed them.
Thank you. So we should get a motion. We had quite a bit of discussion. There's a recommendation to waive the first and second readings and move for adoption, which requires a 2/3 vote of the board, which would be 5 of us.
So I'm going to make the motion. I'd just like to make a comment prior to the motion.
I'd like to get a motion.
All right, so I'll make a motion to accept the signed ordinance as presented by Mike Slavny and Van de Waal.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
And my comment is that we're really complying with a state Supreme Court decision.
U.S.
Federal Supreme Court decision with regards to the way that this ordinance is being written. There's always a possibility that that state Supreme Court decision could be challenged in the future and overturned, right?
There's a chance that it would be refined in a way that would create greater flexibility.
And so my hope is that we would keep an eye on that, and at the point where it does get refined, that we'd be ready to adjust, understanding that there's a bit of demand in the village for some sort of carved out provision. But currently, we don't have the capacity to do that.
And I know that planners around the country are spending a lot of time talking about the current state of the law, how to manage it, keeping an eye on developments. I'll mention this decision, not only is it affecting sign regulations, but we're seeing impacts on local regulations in other areas, for example, relating to panhandling. There have been ordinances that now have been struck down because they're regulating speech based on content and saying, panhandling, you can't just pick on that. So this particular decision people are recognizing it in the legal community and in the planning community. It has pretty far-reaching implications for how much fine tuning you can do in regulating speech.
My comment that I'd like to make in the discussion part of this is, I'd like to see the ordinance with that provision allowed. We could always come back and change it.
You mean allowing these off-premises signs?
Yep, and if they, we can, we don't have that many of them now. If all of a sudden it's in the ordinance that it's allowed and we have 4,000 of them go up in the village, then we can address the ordinance again. I would like to see it allowable. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to request a roll call vote on this.
Sure.
Yes, thanks. I have to say, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. And anybody at home that might feel the same way, don't feel bad, because you're not alone. As I understand it, the off-premise signs we have now are illegal, but not regulated.
No, they are illegal and they are regulated. It's just that there has been minimal to there's been little enforcement.
Okay, right. And I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm just trying to make a point here. Now this new ordinance, the off-premise signs are still illegal. So if we don't enforce this, what's the difference?
Well, this is just a really, really small part of the sign ordinance.
Right, but it seems to be the part that's causing concern amongst the community.
Well, since September, though, we've had lots of meetings with the planning commission, and the business community has come out in real support of this.
Right.
Because this is like doubling the number of signs they can have for their businesses advertising. So the businesses are very excited about this. This is a small, in my opinion, a small hiccup that things move on the way that they are now. And we give businesses a lot more flexibility in advertising for their businesses. I think if we turn this down now, at the next meeting, this room's gonna be full of business owners who have already probably ordered more signage for their
Jeannie, I'm not disputing that, and I'm not saying I'm gonna vote against this at all. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it as I started my discussion here. So, this is still gonna be illegal. What will be the difference between on the temporary sign front between the old ordinance and the new ordinance that's replacing it?
Nothing.
Will there be a difference?
Nothing.
Anywhere?
Oh, I mean, nothing is the very issue we're talking about.
Okay.
In a nutshell, the most controversial part of the ordinance is the one part that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Right, well, because, a little thing like that does affect the community. So,
And you could change it, and you could make 4,000 residents of the village happy, and your 200 business owners would still be just as happy.
You could also have 400 signs go up tomorrow advertising anything that you want anywhere in the state.
We have that now.
no.
No, we don't.
You drive in from Madison on MM coming into the village here, you see signs, mattresses for sale, the Alliance Center.
Those are,
And that's not acceptable, it's not allowed, but they're there.
But
So
they
we have
don't,
it now.
they don't stay up very long.
Week or two.
Well, your sandwich signs don't stay up that long. The straw hats are only on so many days. The church has it only so many days. The Boy Scouts signs are only up so many, week. I just think it's all wrong.
And,
Sorry.
and they're currently in violation of the ordinance, but up to this point, we haven't had any problems in the village, right?
Right.
They're currently in violation of the
But
ordinance,
now
so.
that everybody knows that it's in violation, somebody says, well, I don't like that organization, I can complain about it, then we gotta do something.
Well, and there's an interesting counter to that point, which is now that everybody knows about what's in violation of the ordinance, we're inviting groups to come in, special interest groups to come in and test our village and its ordinance. And I've seen that happen with gun rights, I've seen that happen with concealed carry, I've seen that happen with a lot of volatile issues where groups will go and target communities and test their ordinances. It hasn't happened to this point. Hopefully it'll never happen. But if we don't have an ordinance in place that protects the village and its residents, we're setting ourselves up for potential problems in the future.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this is gonna work going forward. I don't disagree with anything anyone has said here.
Well, I think that, I was talking to Matt and Mike about this today, about procedurally anticipating this situation or issue. So I think everyone is right, Jeannie's right, that the ordinance has gone through a long process. So if you vote against the ordinance tonight, then you're not accomplishing what Darlene and Eric are asking for anyways, but it's not currently in the ordinance. And to me, to not approve the ordinance, it doesn't make sense at this point. You're right, Jeannie, people are waiting for it to be adopted. But if the board wants to have this provision put in that Eric and Darlene are recommending, that should go back to Plan Commission, because that's a big deal. We shouldn't just, if the Plan Commission finds out, right, that the board's just doing this by themselves, they're not gonna be happy.
Please don't send me to that planning commission.
Yeah, so to me, procedurally, the board should approve the ordinance, my recommendation, waive the first and second readings, I think that's what Jeff's motion is.
It is.
And then refer the temporary, am I saying that right, Mike, temporary signage back to planning and let them work on it. And then let them bring forward, and Eric, maybe you're right, maybe that's the solution, you adopt it, you monitor it, and you see what happens, but I hope we don't vote to sign ordinance down tonight after all this work.
I like that.
Because that won't accomplish anything. You're not gonna get what you want by voting against the ordinance tonight.
I like that solution, Mike. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Is there a way to put a date on that it has to be addressed at that committee by X date, so it can be brought back to us then?
So, man, we're talking about I made the comment that, but by voting the ordinance down tonight, Darlene and Eric are not gonna accomplish what they want by getting the temporary signage into the ordinance. Correct. But they can the board can refer to planning, and Eric is saying with a date. So you can make a motion to the planning commission saying, we're referring this issue back to planning and request by whatever date you think is reasonable to get an answer back from the planning commission.
To have the plan commission study and make a recommendation on allowing off-premises advertising signs?
Yes.
Would that be a motion of the board or just direction to the staff?
I'd make it as a motion back to planning.
To be via referral.
Referral back to planning, yeah. Like the next item on the agenda is referral to planning.
And we can all attend that meeting if we want to be a part of it too.
You could, actually, one thing we could do,
The joint meeting.
July 28th,
Yeah.
or July 18th, excuse me.
Yeah, we have a joint meeting coming up with the plan commission.
put it on there.
On that agenda, so,
Yep.
yeah. So I like Mike's recommendation, approve what's been done. It's been a lot of work and a lot of time. And then refer to the planning commission, the issue that's been before us tonight, for further discussion and see what can happen.
Does planning have a meeting before our joint meeting?
The 14th.
Is there a way we can just put it on their agenda so they know
Oh,
it's
yeah,
coming?
we would.
And then they can, if
Give
they
him
have
heads up.
time, they can
Absolutely.
deal with,
Yep.
start the discussion at that meeting, and then we finish the discussion at our meeting?
Sure.
And if that's what the board directs, then I think what we would do, and Mike, I want your input on this. I think what would help them would be for staff to prepare something for Plan Commission to look at. Here's what you would need to do in terms of how you would need to change the ordinance if you wanted to allow this, and here are the implications of that potentially, and then they can discuss it and decide if they think it's a good idea or a bad idea and make a recommendation.
I would also like to know what other communities allow that.
Allow off-premises
Yeah,
advertising?
yeah, if there's any.
Can you guys get us a sense of that?
So I can go drive around their towns and see what it looks like.
I think, Mike, doesn't Fitchburg allow some of that in the commercial area?
I'm not sure.
Thought we-
Perhaps. I know that they don't have a READ compliant code. So in other words, if you don't follow the Supreme Court
That's
decision,
true.
it's easier to split hairs.
So what, Fitchburg doesn't follow the Supreme Court decision?
I think we're going to be the first one in the state with this code.
Lots of communities are out of compliance. But you don't want to be out of compliance, because if you do end up in a lawsuit on this issue and you lose, you pay the other side's attorney's fees. It's expensive.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No.
I'm available at $2,000 an hour in communities that I don't.
What a bargain. Further discussion or questions? Doug?
Yeah, just one thing. I'm happen to be a member of the planning committee for the Boy Scout Salmon Dinner. And so as we approach the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, they would like to do some planning as far as the venue for the event. And that, will affect where signs might be placed. They're one of the groups that are violators of the temporary sign ordinance. In sympathy with them, it's a major fundraising activity, so I'd like to be able to advise them what steps they should take, if any.
Well, if they can find a venue that is located on a corridor where a sign would be an advantage, we allow that 40 square foot temporary sign as a banner or a board for a full month before an event. And if it's on the same property, it's not an off-premise temporary sign, it's allowed.
That part they cover. But they also put up temporary signs off-premise to guide people from out of town who may not know where the location of the event takes place.
Tell those people to get their cell phones out and put the address of the event in their phone.
That's what's going to be the problem. I can't.
I think that's the practical solution to that concern. That's how I find my way to weddings and funerals.
Unless we repeal that one portion of it.
Right.
Okay, further discussion? So we have a motion and a second to repeal and recreate Article 8 of Chapter 17 of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances relating to sign regulations. And the motion and second, waive the first and second readings and move for adoption. Roll call, please.
Follig,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Brockhauer,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Grenier,
No.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Wolf,
No.
Okay, so we needed 5 and we got 5, so that passes. Right, Matt? 2/3 of 7 is.
Right.
4.69.
Need the engineer for that.
Yeah, so
Oh, I had it.
we only needed.
I've got it, it's right here.
Only needed 0.67 of you.
Doing a motion.
I'm conflicted. In fact, 0.4% of me is on the fence.
Doing a motion back to planning.
Steve?
Okay, so then we'll go to planning commission. We need a motion.
I think it should be somewhat clear what you're asking the planning commission to look at.
Okay.
So, so what I'm hearing is it would be a motion to refer to Plan Commission, question whether and how the ordinance should be amended to authorize off-premises advertising signs for kinds of events that you discussed tonight. Everything from the theater group to Boy Scouts to the blood drive to the church events, and to get a recommendation back to the board on that issue. So that would be
my motion.
But I think it's simpler than that. It's whether or not to repeal the off-premises signs, because everything that you said, we can't consider the content of the sign. So it doesn't matter if it's the Boy Scouts or if it's a strip club in Mazamini.
correct.
Either one could advertise then. So I don't think we should have any organizational thing in there. It's just repeal off-premises signs. That's really our only option at the planning commission, unless we don't want to follow the Supreme Court decision.
Well, and I agree with that. I was suggesting, though, that the request to the Plan Commission be to consider it for those kinds of organizations. I would advise the Plan Commission, yes, you can do that, but realize then that we have to do it in a way that's content neutral. So
Yeah,
if
you
we
need to
do
make that
repeal
clear.
this, or if we do allow off-premises advertising, we have to do it in a content neutral way. So that would open the door up to a variety, any organization that wants to do it.
Yeah.
That's your motion, Eric.
That would be my motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, okay. That passes. Got it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mike and Jackie. Okay, item B, under 6, discussion of possible action regarding referral to the planning commission for a public hearing on ordinance number 16-13, Amending section 17-914 sub 8, Plan Development District-Specific Implementation Plan, or SIP, approval procedures of the Village of Oregon Municipal Code.
We discovered that even though the Plan Commission's been referring the SIPs to the board, it's not, right, Mike, it's not technically in the zoning code, so we're asking the board to refer it to planning to hold the hearing to amend the zoning code to insert that in the zoning code.
Okay. I wondered what that meant when I read it.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Any comments from planners?
This is to reflect your current practice.
Yeah. Make it right.
Right concept.
Allows off-premises SIPs.
That's enough, Mr. Rao. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. And item C, discussion of comprehensive plan amendment.
So the village is interested in amending the future land use map, which is in the comprehensive plan. As you probably know, the future land use map shows what future uses are permitted, and zoning has to be consistent with the future land use map. So this proposed amendment would be to allow for some truck repair on a location just north of Netherwood Road, and that would include a music studio potentially. So we're looking to change the future land use map to light industrial to allow for that use. And so while we're doing that, we thought we would take a look at the future land use map and see if there was anything else that we needed to amend, since it is kind of a lengthy process. State statutes kind of lays out the process for amending the comprehensive plan. It usually takes a couple of months because there's a 30-day notice period. The village needs to adopt a public participation plan, so it can be kind of a process. And so we identified a few other locations.
Excuse me, Jackie.
Can you hear?
John, could that conversation go out in the hallway, please? It carries up here. Thank you.
So we identified a few other spots on the future land use map that could be amended as well, just to reflect the current uses currently on those sites. And that's in this email, which I believe is in your packet. But we're happy to answer questions about those as well. And so later in the agenda, we'll ask you to adopt the public participation plan, which is just a required step before making amendments to the comprehensive plan. So not taking action on the amendments tonight, just adopting the public participation plan.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us to item 1 of this item, which is a possible action approve hiring Vanderwall to conduct the comprehensive plan amendment in the amount of $4,655, and we have a breakdown of that in our packet. So I need that motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? That's a lot better than Mr. Slavny's $2,000 an hour, so sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Well, maybe it's only gonna take 2 hours to do the work.
She's gonna do the excellent.
Yeah, I wish it took 2 hours.
Nice time.
Anything else? Okay, so for the motion second to hire Vanderwall to conduct the comprehensive plan amendment, amount of $4,655. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item 2 is the one that Jackie mentioned, action on adopting resolution number 16-17, establishing the public participation procedures for the 2016 amendment to the Village of Oregon Comprehensive Plan. And at the June 2nd meeting, the Plan Commission adopted a resolution recommending the village board approve the comprehensive plan amendment public participation plan. So
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jackie. So then, item D is from the May 4th Park Board meeting. Mr. Bruckhauer, you want to take this?
Yeah, at the May 4th Park Board meeting, Mr. Slavny presented some information regarding updating the village's outdoor plan in 2016-2017, and suggested that 2 aspects of it be evaluated in particular: athletic fields evaluation and natural land area management. Each of those comes with a specified cost and offered to do the work as a proposal form. So the motion is to approve the $4,000 for athletic fields evaluation and $1,500 for the natural area land management.
Well, approve $4,000 and it's broken out, right? $2,500 for athletic fields and $1,500 for natural land management.
Okay, so we have that as a motion from Doug. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments, Mike or Jackie?
The village is almost built out. We have no land within the village limits for an athletic field area similar to other communities our side have. And, you know, we're over 10,000 people now. So we need to look beyond the village borders, and these are tricky things to site. They're land intensive, they have traffic peaking. They sometimes come with night lighting. They don't make the best neighbors for neighborhoods. The soil conditions have to be in the range where they're not too wet when it's wet, and not too steep that it's really prohibitive to grade them for athletic fields. They're difficult things to cite, and rather than kind of taking pot shots over the years, in the future, we think that a more comprehensive evaluation would be a way to save the village money in the long run and make sure we aren't overlooking the best possible sites.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Get a plan and move forward. And, you know, we've heard for years that we have a lack of athletic facilities and our student population is getting larger. So, yeah, to me, these things really enhance the quality of life in a village. And our parents do a good job of leading the team. So, I think it's a good way to go. Questions, discussion? So we have motion second from the Park Board to approve $4,000, which is $2,500 for athletic fields evaluation and $1,500 for natural area land management. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And item 2, discussion regarding Hermston Conservancy Park and review of proposed conservation easement and the village planner's preliminary comments regarding the easement. And Patrick Hermston has offered a tour of his property to the Park Board.
This is the property west of town?
Correct.
That we talked about a month or so ago that
Correct.
came before
Yep.
us?
You have Lodopolis's property, and you
Yep.
have the farm field, and this is the wooded area.
Okay.
Right. And I put it on in the packets. I knew Mike was going to be here. If there's the board had any questions about just the initial reaction to the proposal from the family.
Well, kind of to Mike's point earlier, we're out of room, right? So, I mean, this is an opportunity relative to the park that potentially could be built.
This would be for conservancy area. This would not be for athletic fields.
Right.
Right, but it's a park yet nonetheless,
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, it's green space, it's potential park space for the village.
And it seems to make sense to be looking at it because of the surrounding vacant property and how it would come into play, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
so it totally makes sense to me.
Yep. Yep.
It's an intriguing piece of property because it's an upland piece, and most of our conservation areas are lowland piece and, you know, soggy most of the year. And from the top of the hill on this site, there's quite a view of the entire community almost, and the new bike path. And on the other hand, the provisions in the draft conservation easement will be an ongoing annual expense to maintain a prairie. It's not easy. You need to hire specialists, and you need to do it every year. And we've done a remarkable job with volunteer efforts for the existing conservation parks. But frankly, it's easier to maintain a wetland or a woodland than it is to maintain a prairie. It's kind of labor intensive. So we want to interview, as part of that budget request, experts in the field of long-term prairie maintenance to get a better idea for you of what's involved in terms of both money and effort. And then a second concern is I was the president of the Land Trust for Dane County, the Natural Heritage Land Trust. And our job is to hold these easements, so I've been through this quite a number of times. And typically with a conservation easement, a bequest is made that establishes an endowment fund, and the interest off of that fund annually is typically close to the amount that you need to do the enforcement work on the easement. And currently, the discussions we've had with the Hermsons don't include an offer to establish an endowment. So at least at this point, we are looking at village expenses combined with volunteer labor. So with your approval of that budget, we'll be able to come back and give you more specific ideas of what you might be getting into in terms of cost and annual efforts.
Good, sounds like a good plan.
That was in what we just approved.
Yes.
Yeah,
Budget amount,
that was the second.
$1,500, that's part of what that's going toward.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
And that will include a cost estimate when you return with that analysis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So any discussion or questions on this item, anything from staff? No. Okay, good.
Just real quick, is Park Board going to take a tour of the property, or have they already?
They will.
Can you maybe just make a message or something to the trustees to know?
Yeah, can we
Sure.
go?
We're interested.
Sure, absolutely.
Field trip.
Yeah.
Just kind of like a small arboretum from Madison.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's better with the arboretum because you get a view from the top of the property that really you don't have in the arboretum unless you're out on Lake Wingra. So I would suggest you do, and then Mike, you'll of course need to notice it as a quorum.
Okay, good. Anything else on this? Okay, thank you. So item 7 is Plan Commission items from June 2nd meeting. Where do we find those?
In the back of the packet, under the Planning Commission. I thought since Mike and Jackie are going to be, if you go back,
oh, yeah, here we are, under 15.
Yep, 15A1.
Okay, reported committees, Plan Commission meeting, June 2nd, 2016. Jeannie, you're back on.
All right. This is a discussion of possible action regarding the amending revised 2012 specific implementation plan, which is the SIP, for Lot 1 of Oregon Parks neighborhood and review of memo from Mike Slavny dated May 27th, 2016. And should I make this motion, the same motion the Planning Commission did?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So I will move that we approve amending this SIP for Lot 1 contingent upon all unfinished improvements to all the central open space feature, including the gazebo and landscaping, be fully completed within 12 months of the initial residential occupancy permit for the next building. In lieu of landscaping, the peninsulas may have a decorative concrete delineation. And just a note, landscaping points must be met or made up in other areas of the site. And that landscaping for phases 1 and 2 be completed by August 1st, 2016.
Second.
Thank you.
So, any questions on this? We talked about this at the Planning Commission meeting, and it was just noted that some of the landscaping for the first couple phases had not been completed, and so the developer is here and said that he would be willing to do that. It's interesting, do you all know where this is? It's like up by the Methodist Church. So once those 2 additional apartment condo units get built, there'll be an inside space to that little development that you really can't see from the public view. And it'll be a little triangle with a gazebo and some nice landscaping and area for the residents to use. It's quite attractive. And so we ask that those all be done within a year of those buildings being occupied. And then the Planning Commission had quite the discussion about removing the grass areas in between the driveways, because apparently the grass keeps dying and people run over it and it doesn't grow well, and the developer is tired of basically having it always look terrible. So the Planning Commission came up with a different solution of replacing those little narrow grassy areas with decorative concrete, so it would still delineate each driveway from the next, but it would look nicer than dead grass and mud. So that was pretty much it.
Okay. Any other comments on that, Jackie?
Nope, I think you captured it pretty well.
Oh, good.
So any questions on this or comments, discussion, anyone? Okay, so we have the motion and second about kind of the upgrades at Oregon Parks neighborhood and getting some of these things done. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The second one was we had a public hearing for the general development plan for the sanctuary project at 249 and 267 North Main Street. That was submitted by the Oregon Luxury Senior Condominiums. And the Planning Commission, after lengthy discussion and input from the community, the planning commission voted to table the sanctuary project item for 2 months. And we did that so the developer might have a chance to either address some of the neighborhood's concerns or completely withdraw their proposal or come up with something new. Because the commission, I don't think, felt like it had the votes to approve it. So this was a compromise to not just completely turn the developer away and say, basically, try again. And so I don't know if we need to approve that. That's just informational.
It's just FYI for the board.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought that was a good resolution to that. We had 2 hours of solid testimony from like 22 residents that said that they did not think the development fit the scale of their neighborhood.
Yeah, I think the 2 big issues were the height, the size overall, didn't fit the neighborhood, and stormwater issues. Although I have to say that stormwater issues typically aren't understood by the public because they don't deal with them, because we've done things to handle stormwater. But as Jeannie said, it's going back for some further work by the developer, see what they come up with.
And then item 3 was exterior lighting standards. And let's see, we need to approve this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about, this is basically adopting an ordinance allowing as a conditional use, and this is a big deal, the installation of light fixtures taller than 25 feet and exceeding average on site of 3.60 candles. So this would only be allowed under a conditional use permit, so an applicant would have to come before the planning commission and specifically request this and then show us why. So this is my motion, that village board adopt ordinance 16-12, allowing as a conditional use installation of light fixtures taller than 25 feet and exceeding average on-site lighting of 3.60 foot candles.
Second.
And this is mostly to help the school install taller light fixtures at the new JC East athletic fields. Because right now, under our current ordinance, they can't actually put the light fixtures in that they need to light the fields at night for tournament play for varsity games.
And is that motion a second to waive the first and second readings and move for adoption?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
I did not stick around for the rest of that meeting. Can I just ask why the one person opposed it?
Oh,
Do you remember?
yeah, John Bino is a big believer that he does not want anything pretty much taller than 25 feet in the village.
Okay. And this is not going to be anywhere near any residential, is it?
No, it's out by Highway 14, kind of adjacent to the high school.
All right.
Does this impact the water tower question as well? Was there a question of the water tower lighting being above the?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Well, their lighting was already approved.
That
by
was
plan development.
that was approved through a plan.
GDP.
So it's
And kind of a small technical point, the school district project is also being presented as plan development, and so their light, they could be authorized to have the taller light fixtures and so on, just as part of the plan development approval without this ordinance change. We were earlier considering having them go through a conditional use permit process, but then we ran into some additional issues that suggested that the plan development was necessary. So the real value, if there is a value in amending the ordinance tonight, is to create this process for other projects to allow for a conditional use of review and approval of taller light fixtures.
And Mr. Weiland is here to present on this, or is this later on?
This is
Separate item.
Next item.
Okay, that's right, okay.
Sorry.
Before calling the motion, can you reiterate the motion, please, for me?
Yeah, it is to adopt ordinance number 16-12, allowing as a conditional use installation of light fixtures taller than 25 feet, I think they're 35 feet, and exceeding the average on-site lighting of 3.60 foot candles. And it's, again, waive first and second readings and move for adoption. This is on J.C. Park
Actually, no,
East.
Steve, this is not on,
Nope.
this ordinance has nothing to do with the school district project.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
this would be, do you want to amend your zoning code to allow generically.
Okay.
Anyone to come in and have an opportunity to ask permission to exceed the 25 feet.
It would allow somebody in the future not to have to go to a GDP.
Yeah, so it's just equitable across the community.
It makes it easier for
I
the,
think I'm getting it figured out.
yeah,
But they still need a conditional use
They need a
permit,
conditional
which is
use
a
permit,
complete
right.
process
It's not
to apply
automatic, yeah.
for.
right.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
But to make a petitioner go through a GDP and SIP just to put lights up where they could do a CUP, it's, yeah. But John had an issue with that at the planning.
So I have a question out of curiosity on the subject. How do planners test the effect of a change like this in the ordinance?
I think it's kind of a practical, if you see that it starts to become a problem, we would take another look at it, but there's no real formal way of testing that. Did I answer what you're looking for?
Well, maybe.
So your question is, how do we know if this is gonna have impacts on other properties?
Yeah, so I think there's a term, it's called light, and it's not light pollution, and it's
Trespass.
not light trespass.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I've been part of discussions before specifically with regard to headlights, where they were able to say, well, the way that a headlight would travel, it will shine into a backyard or it won't shine into a backyard. So with regard to this discussion, as we start to consider raising the elevation of lights 10 feet, my first thought is, well, how do we know what the effect of that's going to be on the residents?
Photometric study.
yeah, so you should come to a planning commission meeting, because anyone who applies for a conditional use permit has to submit this really big drawing of a photometrics, which I have yet to figure out how to interpret, but John Bino is like the master at this.
And he's the guy that opposes this.
Yes, but, and he did say that to me on principle,
He opposes it on principle.
yes.
And he can vote against every application for a conditional use
Yeah.
permit that comes up.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, but there is a scientific method of.
Yeah.
For a photometric, it's actually, if you can imagine, the designer will put the design for that light fixture at a certain spot and a certain height. And the testing of that light fixture tells you how intense, the intensity of that, as well as the spread of that light. And so what they do is they put that over an area, and they know that as you get farther and farther away, you get less and less light from that fixture. And so the idea is behind, you look at it, and you start looking at the perimeters to see what the light intensity is at the perimeter of your property or just beyond. And one of the things that came about with, specifically on the school, although it's not on this part of the motion, was at what point do you get to a point, it has a measurement of foot candles, and I believe it's 0.1 foot candle, I think, is the where they design. They say that it's kind of, isn't that right, 0.1?
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, it's where you get to a point where it's really not impacting somebody else outside that level.
Yes, and I believe the village's current ordinance is that light spillover has to be a half a foot candle at the property line, and I believe that's not changing.
Yeah.
That's what you're.
And is that pretty much exactly what it sounds like, the amount of light that a candle would display if it was a half a foot tall?
One candle at 1 foot is 1 foot candle.
Yeah. Well, you were saying that we currently have an ordinance that says half a candle at the lot line.
At the property line.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
I know, I still can't figure
One
out.
birthday candle.
One birthday candle.
Yes.
Something
At the
bigger.
property line. 1 foot tall.
You gotta see that study someday.
We'll send you out testing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry's too old, there'd be way too many candles.
Yeah. No, don't get me going on that.
Okay. Further questions or discussions on ordinance number 16-12? Allowing light fixtures taller than 25 feet and exceeding average on-site lighting of 3.60 foot candles. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, then item 4, I'm gonna make this motion first.
Yep.
And then I'm going to explain it.
Yep.
And then Andy's probably gonna talk. Okay, so here's my motion. I would like to move that we adopt ordinance 1620, changing the zoning classification of J.C. Park East from RH, Rural Holding Conservation, to a Planned Development District, a PPD, and that we approve a specific implementation plan, including recommendations from the June 2nd Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to move that we waive the first and second readings and move for adoption.
A second.
Thank you.
Okay, so at the Planning Commission meeting last week, Andy and Dr. Bussler and some of their very talented engineers were here and kind of walked us through all the exciting things that are happening at JC Park East. And so tonight, I'm sure Andy's going to talk with you about this series of independent building structures and improvements that they are proposing, and that also the uses associated with athletic activities by the Oregon School District are contingent upon the approval of the Oregon Ice Arena's acceptance of the exceeded candlefoot lighting for the parking lot. Pretty pictures.
Welcome, Mr. Weiland.
Thank you, appreciate
You're
it.
on.
All right. So I have some of the boards that that I can walk you through tonight. I don't know how extensive you want to get into it, but this is the map of the facility, and we do have some structures that we're proposing at this point in time, as well as the lighting, which, as aforementioned, was going to be dealt with a different way, but now is being dealt with here. So the lighting, we'll talk about that real quickly. We will be lighting the soccer field, right away. Actually, we have money allocated for that. We do not have money allocated for baseball or softball, but because of Title IX, we probably won't do those until we have money secured for both of those, and then we'll do those at the same time because they have to be fair to the boys and the girls on that. We do hope to play varsity athletics on the soccer field this fall. So we are looking to secure monies. We're getting close to create this building, which would be a concession stand / utility area / bathroom complex. We already do have sewer and water to that facility, as well as sewer and water basically right now. So, and I probably have a drawing of that building. If you give me a second. Yep. Looks something like this. So you can see a garage. This would be pointed south, restroom facilities, and then concession stand with a little bit of a covered area on facing the north. So that building we're hoping to do soon. These would be bleachers, same size for softball and boys baseball, located right behind home plate. We also have seating for, I think, around 473 for soccer, with a press box, which would be adjoining the backside of that facility. We have dugouts for not only baseball and softball, and I think I have a drawing of one of those someplace, but as well as some for soccer. And then there's even a scorer's little shelter that eventually would be built in between those two facilities. We have a joint press box between baseball and softball, and that looks like this facility here. And then the other structure that we have that we'd like to get your approval to build eventually is, it's labeled storage building on our map, but it's actually, and this kind of goes into why we were looking for 35-foot parking lot lighting. It actually is this facility. If you've seen our marching band practice at the high school, they use a scaffolding, which kind of scares us a little bit because they're way up high looking at the band and their formations. So this would be a storage facility / and then we'd have kind of a tower, if you would. That would be a permanent structure that the van could be able to look at that parking lot. Parking lot's going to be designed so that we didn't have a lot of light structures in it, so that the marching band can maneuver around in it without running into those light structures. So we went a little bit higher so that there's less light structures for them to have to deal with. I mentioned, or I haven't mentioned, one of the things that happened when we put this soccer field in was that we did take out the Susan Ames Memorial Garden. A lot of people didn't know that's what it was, actually. It kind of had been overgrown, and the people that were maintaining it had left. We did reach out to the family and been talking to the family over the last couple of years, and we came up with this idea that they supported, and actually they've written some things to put on a plaque that would be at the front of the walkway. It would be Ames Memorial Walk, and then it would talk a little bit about Susan. And we're actually thinking, we'll start with the first one, which will be on the north side of the facility, but we do include in the drawing perhaps one on the south side of the facility too, right off the parking lot. We did have to redesign it, so you see that we have a 13-foot height there in the middle, because we hadn't thought originally about, well, this is a bike path, so we don't want to clip anybody off as they're going through the facility. So we did make it a little bit taller. And we've been working actually with Wisco in creating the metal structure that would be here. Trying to look at the drawing here. We also do propose eventually dugouts and then a backstop for this area, which is kind of a junior varsity softball field. And the nice thing about softball is they can be used not only for softball, but as you guys know at Kaiser Park, you can use them for little leagues and those types of things too. We do have a joint use parking lot here. If you've been down in the facility lately, we're actually getting ready to pave it, hopefully in the next week or so. What we've been able to do is create a easement with the hockey rink, a shared easement. We've actually recorded it and everything. Everybody signed off on it, which allows us to kind of connect the two parking lots. We will light both of them, but by doing that, I think I counted, we're basically creating another 47 or 48, depending on how you count it, parking spots by connecting those two parking lots. So it was a good move for us, and we end up with a total of about 207 stalls. You can kind of see that this is the ticket booth area that we are proposing at this point in time, double-sided, but large enough so that emergency vehicles can get through. And then obviously if it's not a large event, we can just keep one half of the gate shut and just have people go through the one side. You can hopefully see that we're trying to tie the color schemes in, as well as with the building construction that we're doing at the high school. We're trying to tie in the certain colors. I'm not sure that the roofs are all going to be blue, but we are looking for that banding in the middle, as well as trying to do a little bit of signage as far as Oregon and Oregon Panthers and that type of thing. So I'm thinking I'm running out of things to say, so is there...
You might want to talk about the fence,
Oh,
the decorative
yep,
fence
yep.
along.
Good point, sorry. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, actually that would be one of them that would look... I have a little bit more detail one, but this one gives you a feel for it. Actually, this right here does too. What we're looking to do, I might have to get another one out. We're looking at actually an iron fence. It does have little things that come up above, but they're not sharp. And then we're looking at these concrete pedestals that we'd work with Crowley to build. And we're still kind of debating how many fence structures we have before we actually put these piers out there. So it's going to look very nice as people are coming down through the North Perry Parkway Road that you guys are going to be extending. It's going to be kind of a nice front entrance to the high school.
I forgot to tell you.
We're going to talk later.
Andy, can you see through the fence? Like, is it
Yeah.
is it a series of slats or is it opaque?
No, it is a series of black slats. Yeah.
Kind of like what's around Edgewood.
Okay.
If you think
That's
of
what I
how
thought.
that looks.
Yeah, this one here. Oh, there it is. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. I have too many drawings, unfortunately. So this gives you a better feel for it.
Just like Edgewood.
Yep. Yep.
That looks really nice, I think.
Very similar. So, sorry. No electric wire. We're not electrifying it or anything like that. So I'm not entirely sure there'll be 3. There might be actually 4 sections between the posts, but we're trying to identify that now. So, any other questions?
Will play be limited to competition, or will there be practice on it as well?
There should be practices on it as well. Obviously, we want to maintain it so it's a safe field, so we may limit use at certain times. But the interesting thing about this park is that it was bought with federal funds, so we need to make sure that it's open and can be used by the community. So, but we also take a lot of care in our varsity fields to make sure that they're kind of at their optimal playing surface level. So, but we will try to maintain them being open. Softball's not a problem. Softball fields wear very well. It's basically the soccer fields that kind of get tore up a little bit. Actually, anything will get tore up if you do it in the right conditions, but for the most part, softball and baseball hold up very, very well. other questions? You can see here, these are examples of what the dugouts would look like, and this would be from North Perry Parkway. The only thing that's not quite accurate here is these are about 40 feet long, and we're looking for about 10 feet of storage on the sides. So very similar structure to the baseball field. If you've gone and taken a look at that, is kind of our model.
So any questions for Andy? Comments?
Would this field be lockable separately?
The whole facility would be lockable. This is the wrought iron fence that we were talking about, and then we are actually looking to extend that, and as the drawings show, all the way to the ticket gate here on the south side. But then we would be going with, if you've noticed, the baseball field has a new wire, kind of plastic-coated black mesh fence. We would be wrapping the facility in about 6 feet of that, so all the way around. People could still probably let their dogs run around a little bit, just keep them out of our fields, which is kind of an issue at times. We do have some folks not always picking up after themselves.
Andy, where's the high school?
High school would be right up here.
Okay.
Yep. So, Shuey Field, the current varsity baseball field's right here.
Okay, cool.
Anything else from trustees?
Thank you.
I would like to commend the school people that planned this and the architects. I think you've done a great job, and it's not only North Perry Parkway, people driving on, but also out of 14 will see this. I think it's a great enhancement for our school and our community, so good for you.
And I appreciate city staff kind of helping us through this. I'm not sure if I'm doing a DDP or a PDD or ELP or I don't know, but
This kind of was a genesis of the start. The start of all this was Andy said, well, hey, can I put up lights down in the field? We looked into it and we said, well, I think you have to go through a conditional use permit. And then Andy said, well, I also have a fence. And then I'd also like to put in a concession building. So we started looking at it and we said, when we came around with it, that's why we started off with a CUP. We started saying, why not run everything through the process right now? So you can get approved for your specific implementation plan now, and then when funding comes along, you don't feel like you have to come back and seek approval for a scoreboard or seek approval for a dugout or something like that. And I think overall it saves time, it saves money. Andy liked that idea. They did have to actually act pretty fast to be able to get on this schedule because things are moving ahead out there at the park, and they're wanting to get things in place while the construction season is nice, as well as school's going to be. I know school's out tomorrow.
That's the rumor I heard.
Starting much sooner than Andy would like to even think. So,
yes.
So that's kind of how we've ended up today. So I think this will give them a great roadmap, and then also make things much easier in the future as they get money and funding to build these things.
Apologize. Thought I turned that off. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Looks like you're ready when you're done at the school to be a developer. You've kind of got it all figured out. I got that.
I was really hoping to get a job at Walmart greeting people, but that's another option, I guess.
Yeah, you do well with that.
Developer option.
All right.
Okay, anything else for Andy? Again, thanks, Andy. We appreciate your time here
You
as
bet.
well as what you've done leading up to this. So, thank you. So we have the motion and second to adopt ordinance number 16-20. Any further discussion or questions from trustees? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Item 5.
Okay, so this was a notice of the public hearing from the town of Oregon, and this was the Planning Commission's recommendation to the village board that we approve our Director of Public Works sending a letter to Dane County requesting right-of-way as a result of land divisions in the town of Oregon.
Second.
Okay, and this is regarding 5553 Netherwood Road and 1593 Lincoln Road. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to talk about this further.
Well, if you do not approve this, I don't know how I'm going to retract my letters. This has always been kind of tricky because sometimes the way the meetings fall, we want to be able to get the information in the town's hands. And we've historically just taken a look at the future right-of-way and requested that because that's really about it's all really our jurisdictional ability allows us to do. So These are pretty straightforward, and they're really in the town's hands as far as making action on them.
And the county.
And yeah, you're right, in the county.
So at this point, is it maybe more accurate to say this is information only? We can't really make a motion after a letter's been mailed.
Well, you can make a motion, we would send a letter saying, this disregard the first letter.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do that if you, but I think, Jeff is right, it's always, the timing is always the issue.
Yeah, and we've held up some things.
We have.
Because we've waited to get the letter to them and then to wait to go through the process.
So no, you could, if you deny it, we'd inform the county and the town that you denied the request.
So this is one of those times where you have to have a little faith in your planning commission, that they've done the right due diligence and done the right thing.
Yeah, I have no concern whatsoever about the letter that was sent. It's just the formal process. To me, this seems like information only, unless this is something that we have to take action on. Taking action on something that's already happened just feels a little weird.
If the board's comfortable with Jeff's letter, then I guess the motion's not necessary to draw the motion. It's up to you. But Jeff's right, the timing is sometimes we gotta get the letter out, and if you, for some reason, would say we disagree with the letter, we would then inform the county and the town to disregard the letter.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no concerns about the letter, or what you're saying with regard to, having to manage government.
Yeah, just I think government's being on different schedules and they can all work how that fit together, so.
Yeah, and, I have no concerns about empowering you to do your jobs either.
Okay, anything else on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Jeannie. So now we're turning back on our agenda to item 8, which is amending and adopting Chapter 14, the floodplain ordinance public hearing. There's some background. The village board will hold a public hearing to amend Chapter 41 of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to floodplain regulations. The purpose of that public hearing is to solicit comments on the floodplain revisions that are required by state and federal law. This ordinance governs development and activity in mapped floodplain areas. The proposed regulations are intended to protect life, health, and property in floodplain areas and will govern uses permitted in mapped floodplains. Activities such as dredging, filling, excavating, and construction of buildings are generally allowed, but may be restricted according to which flood zone the property is in. So, any comments from staff before we open the public hearing? Okay, so I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this floodplain issue? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Which takes us to any discussion from trustees? Because we do this part of the motion, can't we?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so item D then under 8, discussion of possible action regarding approval of ordinance number 16-18, which is an ordinance to amend Chapter 41 floodplain ordinance, and that would be to waive the first and second readings and move for adoption. So need that motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, this is some housekeeping. Of course, we participate in the flood insurance study in, Dane County and flood insurance rate maps. Periodically, those get updated, and that happened about a year and a half, 2 years ago. They then require you to incorporate those into your ordinances as well as update any kind of small changes that might occur. So that's exactly what we did. We had our engineers go through our floodplain ordinance and made some very minor changes for flood storage, and then also incorporated the latest maps and study for that. This is part of us being still a participating member of the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, and we have to amend this and approve this by June 16th, or we will be suspended from that program. So it's not that's why we're acting on this now and seeking a first and second reading, waive of first and second reading and approval.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So are there questions or comments from trustees?
Are there places within the village that are off limits for building due to floodplain issues then?
Off limits from building? That's a good question as far as how, nothing, this does not change. We always work off the most recent floodplain maps. So we've been working off the most recent floodplain maps. It's just our ordinance is catching up with that. I'm not aware of any significant changes in the floodplain that's occurred in this latest revision. Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Anything else? So we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 16-18, which amends chapter 41 of the floodplain ordinance, and we're waiving first and second readings and moving for adoption. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Item 9, Village Administrator and Village Attorney Report. First is from Public Works and Utility Committee, so Trustee Poole, please.
All right, I'll like to make make a motion to adopt ordinance 1619, providing for lead water service line replacement in the Village of Oregon. And I'd like to waive the first and second reading and move to adopt tonight.
So moved, or rather, second.
Second, thanks,
Apologize.
Jeff. Okay.
And Jeff, I'll let you just go over this.
I am missing 9A. This is hiding somewhere. Here it is. Okay. What we're looking at is obviously we've been discussing the lead services that we've had in our system. We estimate we have about 227 lead services remaining within the village. Although it's not mandated by EPA yet that these be changed out, the city of Madison has taken a very aggressive stance to it and actually changed out, I believe it was 8,000. Does that sound right? I think 8,000 lead services in the last few years at a cost of over $10 million. We feel that there will come a day where EPA will mandate that they be removed. We think it's smart that when we're working on a street and going down a street and replacing the water main, that at that same time that those lead services be replaced at least up to the meter inside the house. We think that given people the option of that, people may elect to not take their service out. We think that's not good over the long term of our system. So this ordinance would basically just say if we're doing a construction project on that street, we're replacing the water main, we'll either give the resident an opportunity to hire a plumber or a professional contractor to come in and replace that lead service from the curb stop to their house, or we will, as we are in the Elm and South Main project, working with the contractor to have the contractor do it, and then they would pay the village for the cost of doing that.
Questions? Jerry?
What percentage of lead pipes does this remove from the village? Or to reverse that, what percentage of lead pipe are left in the village, would you?
I don't know the total number of connections offhand.
Yeah, if you had to guess.
This is 5%, 5 to 10%.
Oh, wow, okay.
I mean, the majority of our services are on older streets where we have degraded 4-inch mains, and that's just, a lot of those are down in the I think it's Lincoln, State Street, not Sterling.
So you got Elm,
South
State,
Main,
Washington, and then I think Dewey.
Dewey and Lincoln, that area over there. So I'd say, it's not a huge number, but it is significant enough that, and with it being so much in the news in the last year, the thing that's shown is that when you go in and if you replace the water main and you replace that line from the water main to the curb stop, you still have to disturb that lead line to connect to it. And they've shown actually that there can be a temporary spike in lead levels because you're disturbing that lining, you're disturbing kind of what's in there. So that's why we say it's just best to go ahead and replace it all, remove all doubt, and then that also actually, ideally, if we could eliminate them all, then we would not have to be testing for the lead services anymore either.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion second to approve ordinance number 16-19, providing for lead water service line replacement in the Village of Oregon, and this is waiving first and second readings and moving for adoption. So, roll call, please.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Poole?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
Breshauer?
Yes.
Woodrow?
Yes.
Grenier?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Item B.
Item B is I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed assessment plan and authorize staff to proceed with the necessary steps for special assessments as presented in the Director of Public Works May 5th, 2016 memorandum.
Second.
This is in regards to assessing for curb, gutter, and sidewalk and the Elm and Main Street, South Main.
Correct. Well, different communities handle special assessments in many different ways, and what they special assess. Some communities will actually special assess 100% of the curb and gutter, 100% of the sidewalk, 100% of the apron, and some do a kind of a hybrid of all of that. Some don't special assess anything. What we looked at is what's fair for the residents, as well as what can be, in our term, financially viable for someone to be able to take care of. We want to kind of send a message that we feel it's a very strong point to take as far as replacing the lead services. Those will come at a cost to the homeowner, and that the best way to do that would be to require the lead service replacement and then only require half of the sidewalk cost to be replaced. The curb and gutter, we kind of take the stance, or we've taken the stance as staff, is that's part of the street. We're not special assessing for the street. We're not special assessing for the water main. When I spoke to a reporter the other day, we were discussing this topic and coming up to this meeting, and he said, well, actually, that's very generous for a community, because he was working in a community on a story for a different community where they had special assessed just about everything. So.
And we do allow a payment plan, right?
We do, yes. Yeah, we'll be working with the issue, and correct me here, Matt, if I'm wrong, but since it's an improvement, the lead service replacement on property is not a public improvement, so we can't special assess the lead service replacement. We can special assess the sidewalk, the half portion of the sidewalk, and we can create a payment plan for that as well. But our plan is that there would be an agreement with the individual landowner at that time that we would say, okay, you agree to pay, I think it was a third up front, and then spread the rest over about a 5-year plan. And that would still run through, we're still working kind of the details of how that runs through on a.
It would be done like the special assessment process.
Correct.
We'd handle it in pretty much using the same procedure, but we would have an agreement. That would be the difference. We'd add an agreement into the mix. But
we need a second, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
You got a second.
We had one.
Did we get one? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down.
If you go back to the item after 9A, attached to the ordinance was a program that Matt drafted with us, and it talks about how we would handle the lead services. And you're right, a third of the replacement would be paid up front.
Paid up front.
Or completion of work, sorry, completion of work.
And we've had meetings with the residents on South Main and Elm Street, because and we'll be talking about that project here in just a little bit, but we've had meetings with them, and it really, we have not had a lot of people that have we've been very open and upfront with them and shared with them kind of some estimated costs, and everyone's been actually very cooperative and I think very supportive of the plan.
Yeah, and your memo says the estimated costs are $2,400 to $3,200.
Correct.
And if it was total, it'd be $4,500 to $6,500 or more, so those are depending upon bids and so on, but.
If we
sounds like a
special
reasonable
assessed
plan to me.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And for those residents that have a corner lot, we are going to take the longest sidewalk?
If it's a corner lot, and we're doing, like on Elm and Main is really where this, or if we are going up Main and we'll special assess, we'll take whatever the longest side is. And that way people on corner lots are not getting kind of double hit. We thought that was very fair, actually. They have to clean it with snow anyways. We don't want to punish them even further.
Further questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed assessment plan and authorize staff to proceed with the necessary steps for special assessments as presented in Director of Public Works Jeff Rouse, May 5th, 2016 memorandum. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, item C from the May 9th Public Works and Committee meeting. You want to do this one, Eric?
This is just a discussion on the information for the village engineer regarding the state's lead service loan program. Do we have a lot of information on that yet?
It's,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, you know, that there's been a lot of publicity coming about of all this federal money and state money out there for lead service line replacement. And so I'm getting a lot of emails, and I know we're getting a lot of inquiries about it. And it's through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. There is money there, however, we do not qualify. It really, the qualifying criteria really centers around your median household income and how you compare to the rest of the state. We're actually at 142% of the median household income for the state, so we do not fall below that level. And let's see, what was the other criteria? I think population and everything. It's just out of, you needed at least 30 points to qualify, even to begin to qualify, and we were at 5. So we're really not on that spectrum. And, really the Safe Drinking Water Loan is not, there's principal forgiveness if you are in a community that has a low income and lower income bracket, but we aren't in that, and so we're really just strictly a loan, and we don't qualify.
Thank you. So that takes, any questions on that? Go to item D, hotel project update.
The update is that the financial arrangement, I think, on a hotel may be changing. I received an email from Eric Lund that the owner of the current motel will probably be the main financial supporter of the new hotel. Actually, will be the person that will own the hotel. So we're not starting over again, but we're going to have a meeting with her name is Barb and Eric Lund, probably sometime around June 20th. So I can maybe give the board an update at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So, and the same thing with the bowling alley. I'm waiting for some feedback or response from the bowling alley owner.
Okay.
So
item E was a bowling alley. We just took care of that one, which takes us to item F. Discussion of possible action on approval of ordinance number 16-17, an ordinance to amend sections 12.05 sub 3 sub B4, 12.05 sub 4 sub C2 and 3, and 12.05 sub 6 relating to alcohol licensing. And this again waive the first and second readings and move for adoption. It requires a 2/3 vote of the board. So
moved.
Second. Sure. These are mainly some technical amendments to bring our fee requirements into compliance with what we're allowed to do by the state. And then we also have a change, it's on page 2, in terms of who would be given notice of public hearings for Class A or B licenses. Current language refers to notifying all property owners and residents, and the clerk's office is finding that it's very challenging to notify residents because you don't know who they are if it's a rental property. But with the property owners, we've got a clear record as to who they are. And then finally, we have the change that really was driven by the chocolate caper, that removes the separation distance requirement in the area that's described as the exemption area on Appendix A. That's attached to your materials. The area that is described, maybe somebody, this is kind of hard because it's just this area, right?
Yep.
There's an area bounded by Park Street, Spring Street, Brook Street, and I can't read that one, Waterman Street. That is basically a downtown area that would be exempt from the 1,056 feet separation requirement. And that's it.
Any questions on that? So we have that motion and second, which is to waive first and second readings and move for adoption. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item G, discussion of possible action, resolution number 16-18, establishing village policies relating to alcohol beverage service compliance checks. That stresses that compliance checks will happen no less than twice during every rolling 12-month period, and results will be reported to the village board. Businesses who fail the compliance checks we can request them to appear voluntarily before the board. And if an establishment fails 2 or more compliance checks within a rolling 12-month period, it's the policy of the village board to consider the initiation of proceedings for suspension, revocation, or non-renewal of such establishment's alcohol beverage license.
Make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
I would just comment that I think we've kind of gone back and forth on how we want to handle violations of the ordinances regarding alcohol sales. And I think it would be good for the community for us to proactively communicate to the business owners that sell alcohol what the new ordinances, how the new ordinances read.
Yeah, so in this isn't an ordinance. I think it would be wise, however, I agree with you that it's good to communicate to the license holders what the village's policy is with respect to compliance checks. And certainly that can be done. The key elements here are, one, the frequency. And in a sense, this is establishing policy by the village board that the police department will need to then implement in terms of how frequent these checks will be, and then the requirement that the results be promptly reported to the village board. Item 4, I just want to make sure you're aware what I think it means. You know, it is, if anyone does violate or fails 2 or more compliance checks within a 12-month period, then what this is saying is there will be an item on the village board's agenda to consider whether to move forward with the process necessary to either suspend or revoke or non-renew a license. I can only remember one establishment falling into that category in the last, or have we had a business that fell into that?
2, right?
2 at Bergamot.
Yeah, Bergamot was the one.
Headquarters too, I think.
Yeah, close, right.
So if this policy is enacted as written, I think what that would mean is that the board would be directing staff, now you need to include an item on the agenda for the board to consider whether to move forward with that process. And that would be something new also that could be communicated to license holders.
Yeah, that communication is a good idea, Jeff. And I know Chief Ewell, the last compliance check, sent a letter to both those who failed it and those who passed it. And the ones who passed really appreciated that they were acknowledging, yeah, you're doing it right. So that's good. So thanks, Brent. Sure.
Just thinking ahead about this, I mean, the reason I wanted to highlight item 4 is if you don't have this in the policy, it doesn't mean you can't do it. If you can't at any point decide that you want to move forward with that kind of a process. By putting it in the policy, or I think directing staff, put it on the board's agenda if this happens. What is not addressed at all in this policy is how you'll deal with that issue when it happens. How you will go about making a decision. Do we now initiate suspension or revocation or non-renewal proceedings? So the policy is silent on that, and that'll just be something you'll have to grapple with when it happens. I've not seen a community take this approach to it. Generally, communities consider moving forward with that kind of a process when there's an establishment that stands out as creating problems for the community. And there's a recognition that it's serious enough so that there's a need to move forward with suspension or non-renewal proceedings as a response. So I just want to make sure you our, understanding that if you have this in the policy, it's not something that you'll have the ability to say, wait and make a judgment. Do you want to have that discussion and consider that based on, in a reactive way? I think this would be telling us as staff, if it happens again with one of these places, it's going to be on the agenda and you'll have to grapple with it.
And it's a yellow light to the establishment. Which is good.
It should be.
And it's a warning to all the rest of them.
It
I think
should
it's good to be proactive and get this out there. They know this what may come their way, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it should let them know that, if there's two or more, once they get the first one, they should be told, if you get one more, it is the village's policy that if you have one more, the board will consider whether to initiate this process.
Yeah. Right. So questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion second to approve resolution number 16-18, which establishes village policies related to alcohol beverage service compliance checks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item H, discussion of possible action regarding approval of ordinance number 16-16 and ordinance amending section 7.01 relating to the adoption of state traffic and vehicle equipment laws. Again, waive the first and second readings and move for adoption. And that requires 2/3 of a vote, and I would ask Chief Ewell to please explain this.
Sure. So what I asked Matt to do was to revise the ordinance so we could adopt Chapter Trans 305 of Wisconsin State Code. And that deals more specifically with equipment violations of vehicles that aren't currently under purview of our municipal court. So for example, I think you all know that I'm pretty concerned about officer safety. One of the things that I always was concerned with when I was out working traffic is, can I see inside a vehicle? And so I noticed when I came here that there are a lot of vehicles that have very dark window tint, and at night you cannot see in those vehicles as an officer. So right now, as it stands, if we write a ticket for illegal tinting of the windows, it has to be under Chapter 305, and those go to this, Madison, the state court, circuit court, right?
Yep.
And so what this ordinance does is allows us as a village to write these tickets under municipal code and write them to our village court. And so this entire chapter not only covers the window tinting, but it covers all kinds of vehicle things, from exhaust to horns to everything else that isn't covered under our municipal code now.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Chief Ewell or comments or discussion? And thanks for bringing this forward on behalf of our officers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, discussion of possible action regarding amended memorandum of understanding related to the sharing of certain costs to improvements and the jurisdictional transfer of County Trunk Highways MM and County Trunk Highway CC within the Village of Oregon. Comments here?
Basically, you've seen this before. The county has some minor changes to it. And then Jeff just had a couple little, basically typos, and we recommend approval.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
Is there a mechanism in this that if, say, we do phase one and we encounter some problems, that we can amend the agreement going forward to the next phase, or?
So this is only an MOU.
Okay.
And so every phase will have its own agreement.
Good.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna say that, man.
Yep.
Somebody asked me that before, that's why I knew that.
That was probably me.
Probably right. No, it just sort of provides the outline of working with the county. I know the county board's gonna have to approve it, Jerry, and then when we do, every time we do a phase, we'll have a separate agreement, you know.
Yeah. So we're making progress.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, anything else? We have a motion second to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding sharing of certain costs to improvements and the jurisdictional transfer of County Trunk Highways MM and CC within the Village of Oregon. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10, approval of minutes. There are none before us tonight. Item 11, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $285,161.57.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
On Staley, plumbing and heating. The AC unit, is that at the police station?
In the computer room, it broke.
That might be a different one. That one might be the senior center.
Was that? Oh, okay. I guess I should probably look.
We've
What's
had,
the amount on it?
It's 20,000.
Wait, that's not,
oh, that's, huh?
that's not us.
20,000.
20.
That was yours.
Or is it you're talking about the big one?
The main one, yes. Yeah, that was yours.
Oh, the 31,000 you mean, Jerry? That's what you're talking about?
31?
31, yeah, that's.
It's going up.
That's
No, the 31,000 is the main building.
the board approved that
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the PD.
There, you'll see some other repairs coming with the AC
Right.
units coming online this year. We've
Okay.
had some.
I just was wondering if it
Yep.
was something new. It wasn't
Nope.
really, didn't really
Same
say
thing.
PD. Thank you.
Any other questions? So again, we have most vouchers, about $285,161.57 for approval. Roll call, please.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Bernier,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Brethauer,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Item 12 is community input. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Dan?
Hello, Dan Donahue, 248 Prairie View Street, and owner of the Chocolate Caper. Just wanted to make a comment about the referral back to the Planning Commission regarding the sign ordinance and the carve-out potentially for organizations that want to do off-premise advertising, which I have no problem with, and I actually completely agree with. I was just looking at the Netherwood Main Street intersection where all the signs just went up in like the period of a day. And I was driving through the other day and just was like, oh, it's summer. But I think that the point that Jeannie made that came up at the Planning Commission that is really important to keep in mind as that goes back to Planning Commission is off-premise advertising. I have no problem with signs, and I don't know where the line between what constitutes commercial and what constitutes non-commercial is. So if the Boy Scouts are advertising for one of their fundraisers, is that a commercial use? I don't know the answer to that question. But we have had some issues, I know us and just some other businesses, with when one business decides to put a sandwich sign out and then put it in front of our business, or different things with that off-premise advertising. So I would just encourage you, as you consider that, just to keep in mind that I think most of the business community is very in favor of the no off-premise advertising from a commercial perspective. So just keep that in mind while thinking about how to, I mean, I totally think church groups and Boy Scouts and all those groups should be able to do something, but with the content neutrality provisions, I don't know what that is. I wish I could tell you the magic bullet. But, so that was all.
Okay, thanks. And just, we can't discuss this item.
Yep.
It's not okay.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Judy? You bet.
I know you can't discuss this, I'm Judy Knudsen, the Chamber Executive Director. What we're working on is some stuff for social media for our businesses and some of the nonprofits. So we do have social media that we can boost, Facebook. We can do all kinds of different things instead of the signs, and that's what we're trying to work with. That's what I was talking to John when I tried to convince him of that today. But it does have a small cost. For $10, we can reach 2,000 to 5,000 people, and they can pick their own demographics, and all the other things like that too. So we're willing to work with them and see if we can get them so that they don't have to have the signs as much as they can get many people from around, not just Oregon, but around the area also.
Okay, good.
So just so you know that.
Yeah, thank you. So item 13 is proclamations and announcements, and item A, board comments.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. My first comment is I want to thank the village residents that come to these meetings and speak to the village board about their concerns. I think that the more residents are engaged in governance, the stronger the village is going to be. And it certainly helps me to form my opinions when I have that really crucial piece of information, which is what do the village residents want. So that's my first comment. My second comment is the Fire EMS Commission went through a transition on Thursday, and Phil Van Kampen will be the vice chair and I'll be the chair. And I wanted to just thank Phil publicly for his leadership over the past couple of years, and even going on before my time on the Fire EMS Commission. I think most of you all will remember the Fire EMS Commission being in pretty bad shape maybe 10, 15 years ago, And through the participation of Phil Van Campen.
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
The participation of Phil Van Campen and others on the Fire EMS Commission, and ultimately Phil's leadership, now we have a very, very strong financial position. We've got a great staff of dedicated firefighters, very talented firefighters, and they're led by a very talented and dedicated fire chief. So we're in a much different place today, and I want to thank Phil publicly for his role in that.
Good. Thanks for letting us know that, and I've worked with Phil quite a while, and he's always done a good job. He's very committed to what's good for the area, not just town of Oregon, so good for him. We appreciate it. Any other board comments? We'll go to staff comments. The first is reminder Parade of Homes from June 13th through June 28th at the Legends of Bergamot.
I think that's supposed to be June 11th. I think I got the wrong date, but
Okay.
I think it starts this Saturday, I believe.
Okay. So the 11th through the 28th?
Pretty sure.
Thank you. And then, Mike, your upcoming meetings?
Yep, so there's a list of meetings. The only one I have a question on for the Finance Committee members. The one thing that we could have a meeting on for next Monday is to talk about the bank RFPs. Would it matter, be okay with the committee if we just brought that directly to the board? Otherwise we can cancel the meeting. So I think you vote for that. Okay, I thought that was gonna be an easy decision, but, so no meeting next Monday night.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, all right.
Find something to do.
Go for
Okay.
a bike ride.
Yeah.
Item 14, communication, miscellaneous business. Item A, discussion possible action regarding emerald ash borer treatment of ash trees in 2016 and review of the door hanger. Should this be a committee doing this
Actually, well,
or not?
Did it?
If
Yes,
not,
and-
I'll read the motion then. Contract the Arbor Systems to treat 95 ash trees as outlined in the table titled Trees to be Treated with Insecticide in 2016, the amount of $15,225. So we would need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
yes and no. This has already been reviewed at the committee level as far as the what to be doing with the ash trees. And at the most recent, I believe, at village board level, we approved a plan to actually go ahead and actually treat some trees, or treat the trees in 2016. We're kind of wanting to get that going as soon as possible because we're in the middle of that window now. So I did solicit bids from 3 entities for treating 95 trees that are 11 inches in diameter or larger, which are the ones the healthy trees that we were wanting to save. Those are within the public right-of-ways, parks, and village property area. Received the low bid was from Arbor Systems, which is nice because they actually were the ones that did our original study for the amount of $15,225. So we're asking that you would authorize us to go ahead and enter into that contract with them.
Jerry?
Yes, has there been a motion on this?
Yeah.
And a second.
We have a motion, second.
Question. First of all, actually, a comment. Thank you for getting the bids. It's interesting that our person that did the study, or the company that did the study, was able to be low bid. That was
Yep.
nice. Will private property owners be able to dovetail onto this bid?
There are private property owners that are already actually doing treating of their trees. And in fact, some of the trees that we've marked to be treated have already been treated.
They're treating their own trees?
Terrace trees.
Oh, terrace trees.
Terrorists, yeah, terrace tree, not terrorist trees for those out there on the live feed.
There's a headline for you.
Yes. But yes, there's some that have treated those. Honestly, this is kind of like getting your lawn fertilized. You would just call up someone who does this, and they would come out and do it. So it's
Okay.
really not something. It's not as sophisticated as like the lead line replacement, where it requires a lot more equipment. And there are entities out there that are marketing this to residents to have their trees treated.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion second to enter a contract with Arbor Systems to treat 95 ash trees as outlined in the table. Trees to be treated with insecticide in 2016. The amount is $15,225. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding South Main Street and Elm Street bids. Recommend a motion to award the contract for Elm Street and South Main Street to Iowa Grant Trucking Incorporated for the estimated total amount of $567,382.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the street project for this year, Elm and South Main. Elm South Main from just beyond where we ended before at the downtown area there out to State Street. And then Elm Street from South Main over to Jefferson. Complete removal of the roadway. It's gonna look really nice, new sidewalks, new aprons. We got 6 bids, which was actually really great. We had a nice bid window here. And I think we got some really great numbers. We were below the engineer's estimate, which was and comfortably below, not scary below. And so the total amount is $567,382, which would be in borrowing in our borrowing package for this year.
Yep.
And we recommend approving this so we get under contract with Iowa Grant.
Yep. Questions, discussion? We have a motion second then for the contract for Elm Street and South Main Street to Iowa Grant Trucking for a total amount of $567,382. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item C, discussion possible action regarding purchase of the combination jetter vacuum sewer truck. Recommend a motion, purchase one new 2016 backdoor combination sewer jetter vacuum truck, model 2112P-16, per proposal from Bruce Municipal Equipment for $393,250. Funding is from the 2016 borrowing.
So moved.
Can we get a second on that, too?
I'll second.
Okay.
All right. Well, hopefully you get a chance to read through my memo as well as Gary's, and I would like to publicly thank Gary as well as the entire Public Works staff. We've all invested quite a bit of time into the review of this equipment. This is the first purchase of this type of equipment we've ever had. So to be able to get up to speed, we actually had 5 vendors come in and give us full day demonstrations on those. We saw the trucks, we were able to walk around them, kind of get their spiel of what was good and what was better than others, and then to physically take them out in the field, watch them do some hydro excavation, as well as do some sewer cleaning. If we would have kept going, we could have probably had half the village cleaned, which would have been nice under a demo plan. But really, it came down to 2 vendors that really rose above the top of the other of the 5. That's when we came to you and asked for the bidding requirements be allow us to do that. We went to Vactor and VacCon. Both came back very competitive bids. You notice there's a difference of about $13,000 between the Vactor and the VacCon. There's some things that we do actually get added value by going with the Vactor over the VacCon, and our recommendation is for that because, number one, we had specified stainless steel tanks. They don't corrode. In this area, they don't recommend you use an aluminum tank because you can actually get some scaling and some kind of crud that develops on the inside of the tanks, and that can clog your pumps. So we went with stainless steel. The VacCon really only offers the high-density polyethylene tanks. We just think there's some value in that, as well as the Vactor actually meets a dump height to be able to allow us to dump into a dumpster if that's the way we decide to go ahead and get rid of solids at times. The Vactor comes extremely highly recommended by other communities, including, I believe it's Verona, but also the McCann's Underground, which has, I don't know how many have these, but they exclusively use Vactor. Following Chief's recommendation, we will not be getting the window tinting. So
Just make it legal. You'll get six.
we were gonna get it pimped out, but no, you'll find that we do not have window tinting on this. But it's a very nice vehicle. I will say, just to kind of reiterate, this is more than just sewer cleaning piece of equipment. It's a kind of an all-around something we'll be using every single day. The hydro excavation allows us to be able to excavate for utilities, for water main breaks. You can actually excavate a very small diameter hole to be able to, they call it potholing, to be able to find utilities if it's in a real sensitive area. We use it to actually dewater a hole if we need to be able to get to repair a water main break. It allows us to clean the the concrete ditches you see going through the parks and everything like that. We pay to have that done every year. Allows us to be able to clean our wastewater treatment plant, the tanks and everything like that. It has pressure washing capabilities, so we can go around, and if for some reason, say someone were to paint a lot of things on the streets that we didn't want them to, we could go along and blast those things off very easily. So I think we're going to find that this is an extremely useful piece of equipment. We had budgeted $400,000, and we budgeted that because that's what we knew it would cost to get this outfitted the way we would like. So it's an exciting time, and we would ask that you would approve this piece of equipment.
Is it under 400,000 because you didn't get the window tinting then?
Yes, yes, yes.
You get a siren
We had to
too?
cut somewhere.
Yeah, it could, yeah, right.
That, it doesn't have 5 speakers. But, no, actually, we're excited when, assuming this is approved, when we get this in the fall and everything, we are going to, we'd love to have kind of a stage of demonstration and everything and show you kind of how it works. And they're wanting to, the guys have wanted to go with it as a red on red package to match our plows and everything like that. It'll look very, very sharp, and yeah.
Thanks, and thanks to Gary Dees for his work on this. So,
Absolutely.
sounded quite thorough. So we have the motion second. Is there any further discussion?
What's the anticipated life of this under normal conditions?
20+ years.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we ever want to upgrade, the resale value on is actually very, very, very good.
I don't know how you could upgrade with all those options.
Well, window tinting.
Window tinting.
Absolutely.
Anything further? So we have the motion second to purchase the new 2016 backdoor combination sewer jetter vacuum truck in the amount of $393,250. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Item D, discussion possible action hiring Elizabeth Saylor as a deputy clerk at an hourly rate of $17. She is currently working at the library part-time and also as a substitute teacher. This is coming from Peggy, so.
You can vote on it here. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Second.
No.
Sure.
I did.
Sorry about that.
So did you get that?
We're pushing this along now.
Okay. So any questions?
The effective date is actually June 22nd.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Forgot, I missed that. Thank you. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, discussion possible action regarding consideration of continuing in Dane County Urban County Consortium.
So moved.
Second.
We have not received a lot of benefit from this recently, but we took advantage of it when we first joined. We went through, 5 or 6 years of facade programs, for example, downtown. So I'd recommend continuing with the program at this point.
Okay, so staff recommends. Okay.
Well, you know, and just along the lines of creating more housing for the low to moderate
Yeah.
income population and the CDBG grant money that would be available to us to help with some of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more geared to us going forward than what maybe the last couple of years we haven't taken advantage of it.
Mike, what's the cost of this, to join this consortium?
There's no cost.
Okay.
It's basically, we're saying we're part of the group where the state gives block grant money to Dane County, and we're saying we're part of that group versus trying to get the block grant money directly from the state.
Get it through the consortium.
Yeah, we get to the consortium, yeah. And this group sets up the parameters of how they're gonna use the money, and it's changed over the years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? So we have the motion second to consider continuing in the Dane County Urban County Consortium. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, Police Department reports. So any comments from Brian or any questions or comments?
Steve, could we
from
go
Chris?
back and deal with the second part of 3, approving the salary for the new sergeant?
Oh.
That's okay, I intentionally didn't say anything when you went over it. I did, no, I did.
Just think I might go back and figure it out.
No, I just thought we could maybe deal with it here, Brian.
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So do we need to publicly announce what that is, or do we just make a motion to approve the salary for the new sergeant?
Well, that's a good question.
Oh, no, you'd be approving the salary for Cindy.
But do we need to specify the dollar amount
Yeah,
in the motion?
Brian's gonna give it to you, his recommendation.
He was asking if we publicly need to make the announcement.
Does the board
I'm
have
sorry.
it in their materials?
No.
No.
Do they not? No? Okay.
So what's her start date is the 19th?
So her start date's the 19th. I
I-
asked, go ahead.
I said we could bring it back on the 20th, but I forgot to ask you to bring me something.
Well,
for it.
I'll make the motion to approve her salary commensurate with her rank of sergeant. I just don't know what that dollar amount is, but it's established in a table. It's not arbitrary, right?
No, well, we have the village has a range that we started. So her salary is basically the same starting salary as we did the last promotion of the detective sergeant, so.
Yeah.
Is that specific enough for the board to know what you're approving?
It's budgeted, I assume.
It's budgeted.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion then.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
And
can
actually,
find
this
out
is a
after the fact.
replacement
Absolutely.
this is a replacement of retiring sergeant.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
in fact, it's apples to apples. Well, it's
Well,
probably a cost savings to
it's
the
a
police
cost savings
department
for the
because
village.
the
Right.
prior sergeant had more
Yeah.
time in service.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion second to approve the salary for new Sergeant Cindy Newbert. Are there any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for that flexibility on that.
It's something if you promote her and then you don't give her a salary.
Well,
increase.
that's interesting.
Go along with
Doesn't
it.
get paid for
Well,
that.
it's
Be a surprise, huh?
it's not clear exactly, who has the authority to do that, and so sometimes we have it happen, and it dawned on me the other day, I better ask the board. And that's one of the things I may ask you at some point is maybe allow the administrator just to, on a promotion like that, to set the salary.
Yeah.
Guess we are.
The way you are, thank you. That's true.
Okay, so we'll go back to 14F. Police Department reports. So any comments from Brian, if there are any, and any questions from trustees?
No, thanks. These reports are
Yeah.
very interesting. I had no, unless you see a report like this, you have no idea what's going on in the
Yeah,
community.
as you can see, we've been quite busy.
Yep.
And throughout the department, with the major crimes that we deal with.
And the variety.
The variety of cases that we deal with, absolutely. Our K-9's been busy.
Yeah.
Even our detective bureau, as you can see, has been very busy as well. They have that workload coupled with we're doing a new hiring process now, so they're doing backgrounds with that. So we are definitely keeping busy in the police department.
Compliments to you and your staff.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you coming with the cleanup of the evidence room, the holding cell, and the certification?
Yep, good questions. I'll kind of do it in reverse order. I have probably 6 to 9, depending on if I can get them approved or not, of new accreditation policies that come to you probably the next time around. We were going to put it on this one, but it's a little long. So we moved it back to the next board meeting. What did you say next? The evidence room is probably, I think we're on 2010 right now, moving our way backwards in time. Lieutenant is working on that. She's going to Northwestern School for Staff and Command as well, but we hope to have that completed by the end of the year. The holding cell, we needed to do some minor tweaks on that. The state required that we have, even though we don't house people in there overnight, they required that we have a dimming switch in there so we can turn the light down. So we just had that installed. And now we're waiting on the fixes of the hot water system to be able to get hot water in the cell. So that should be done in the next month or so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to item 14G, Summerfest permits. Item 1, discussion of possible action, approval of 4 temporary Class B picnic licenses for the beer tent for the Summerfest event. The dates are June 23rd through June 26th, and these are contingent on approval from the police department.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
They're already approved. They're already approved, Steve, sorry. I didn't know
What's that?
They're already approved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Both of them? Or all?
Okay. So no action on that.
There's no contingency. You can just vote for approval.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry. I understand. You said the police department's already taken care of it.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Oh, approved by the police department.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got
That's
lost.
been done. Yeah, I didn't do thanks. I'm glad I'm not alone for a change. It's always
I don't remember being at that meeting, but if you say so.
I'm sitting there not know what's going
We're
on.
just trying to confuse you, that's all.
Works pretty well, let me tell you. Okay, so any questions on the Class B picnic licenses for the beer tent? This is an annual thing. Judy, any comments here?
Just that we're, have our security guards at Endress and Endles we're going to this year, and we will have 5 on the grounds at all times. And Chief Yule offered to have a couple for me also, so that should be more than sufficient. And, you know, we haven't had any problems whatsoever in the last 5 years, so I don't see any problems at all either.
But our officers will be on our time.
Yes, they will.
And they'll be in the
For the-
midway.
for
They're
the-
going to go
Yes.
through the midway through.
They will not be carding anybody unless they feel suspicious of something.
Yeah.
But also, we will have no carry-ins, and we are going to stress it with anybody who has a booth, anybody that has anything, because I know you don't want carry-ins, and so we also have the security guard that's going to be watching that too, so there'll be no carry-ins also. So we're going to really have to, you know, watch that. We have Safe Ride for Friday and Saturday night from 11:30 to 1:30, so we'll make sure everybody gets a safe ride home, and if we need to use golf carts that we need to use to take people home in town here, we have 3 of those, so we'll get the people home, and we watch closely who goes with who and make sure there's no allegations or anything like that. So we're pretty well equipped and pretty well knowing what's all going on, so I think we got it under control, and it's here almost, so.
Yeah. And it has gone well the last few years, so
It
thank you for
has,
that. Yeah,
yes.
it's worked well.
And we're really particular about it, and we'll, you know, we'll just kindly ask somebody to leave and have the security guards, or if the officers are down there, I'm not afraid to ask them to, you know, just go over and talk to the person,
Sure.
so.
Okay, good, thank you.
Judy, what time do alcohol sales end in the evening?
On Thursday night is 11:30, the band quits,
Okay.
so we'll do a last call before then.
So it coincides with the music?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
12:30 is also,
Right.
when the bands quit,
I'll
we're
figure it
done.
out.
It's usually a half hour before the band quits. The bartenders ask the ticket holders to stop selling tickets.
Yeah, and then we just say last call, and they quit selling.
It's very entertaining.
And then, yeah, Jeannie's my right-hand man this year.
I would encourage everyone to volunteer. It's a lot of fun. I volunteered last year. I'm going to volunteer this year. Selling beer tickets in the beer tent is highly entertaining.
Well, and if you don't want that big of
Free
an,
show.
but if you don't want that big of entertainment, we are really looking for volunteers to sit like on the bike trail or sit somewhere on the trail where people are running, so we make sure everybody's safe. And we have water stations that we need people to sit at. So if any of you are interested, we'll take you up on it. So I know Doug already volunteered for that. So, and I mean, being out on the bike trail is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But we are utilizing the bike trail for our 10-mile run, and so that people know that it's there. So we thought we'd get that out there. Also, on Thursday night, we're having Distant Cousins on the new theater that we have for, it's not on our sheet because we didn't have it at first, but on the new theater for the school, because we want people to know that, that little theater outside.
The amphitheater?
Yeah, the amphitheater.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they know that that's there too. And,
good idea,
and,
Rick.
yeah, so we thought we'd try that and let people know that that's there also. So, and to show off our community and make sure that it works.
Good.
So,
Anything else? Okay, so we have the motion second for the licenses for the beer tent for Summerfest.
I made the motion.
I did the second.
Okay,
thank you.
that's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 2, discussion possible action, approval of permit for Oregon Chamber of Commerce to be present in Kaiser Fireman's Park and J.C. Park after posted hours for the Summerfest event, June 23 through 26.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Got a formality every year. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item H, discussion possible action, approval of 2016-2017 renewal alcohol beverage licenses. Any comments in general here, Chief Ewell?
No, I think what I heard, everything went pretty well. No problems, except there was a little surprise that you told me about, I guess, is regarding the Alpine Liquors establishment, correct?
Yeah, thank you. I'll get to that when we do the Class A combination. So we'll take these as a group, Class A beer and Class A cider only. The 3 Quick Trip stations, number 302, 372, and 731, and the Stop and Go at 856 Janesville Street. So need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Class A combination would be Bill's Food Center and J.L. Richards Meats and Deli. We're holding on the license for Alpine Liquors. There's some issues there that Department of Revenue has with that establishment, and also there's a sign on the door this morning that says Alpine is sold. Inventory is being run down during the transition, so that license will not be acted on tonight. It may come back to us on the 20th. We'll see what else is happening there and what Department of Revenue has to say.
So it's closed right now?
No, it's open, selling the inventory, but the business has been sold.
But Department of Revenue says in their letter that they don't have a license to sell beyond June,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, if things don't get cleared up, they won't have a seller's permit in July. So we won't act, we'll just wait until, see what happens there by the 20th and go from there.
Do we have to renew the license if it comes back to us on June 20th?
So, excuse me, if they've applied for renewal, and they have, the license needs to be renewed unless the board chooses to initiate non-renewal proceedings. Now, if the current license holder sells the business, we don't know, I don't know what that means. Have they closed? If there's a different...
We're not sure, ma'am.
Presumably, they haven't closed yet because he's selling his existing inventory. So the license was issued to that particular party. So if the business has been sold and somebody else wants to buy it, whoever that somebody else is going to need to come in and apply for a new license. But the village would need to either approve the renewal of the license or initiate proceedings to not renew the license. I don't know exactly what the DOR situation is, and we're not apparently going to get into that tonight, but if you think that we're going to need to consider non-renewal, then we would need to schedule a hearing for that.
Well, he doesn't have a seller's permit. And basically the state is saying,
He can't sell after July.
yeah, right. They're giving a grace period.
Okay, so, but that's a separate issue from our license, correct? So what happens if he gets his seller's permit? Would we just
First time when there, I said,
put this back on the agenda to
Yeah.
consider?
Yeah.
so much inventory in there, so.
But I think we're not clear who actually is going to own the business, let's say, in July.
I haven't received anything specific that is telling me what's going to happen with that.
But he did apply for renewal, correct?
Yes.
So he's entitled to renewal of his license unless the board pursues non-renewal, in which case you gotta schedule for a hearing.
Yeah.
And establish that there are grounds for non-renewal of the license.
Okay.
Matt, if he has sold the business but applies for his new license and is given his new license, that new license does not transfer to the new owner, does it?
No, it does not.
Okay.
A lot of people think that's the case. And we have to explain it to them all the time, Eric. I think that it's a transfer, and they can transfer it to the new owner, which is not true.
Okay, so going Class A combination, the two will do tonight at Bill's Food Center and J.L. Richards Meats and Deli. So we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Class B combination, which is fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor. Headquarters, Restaurant and Bar, The Legend of Bergamot, Senior Peppers, Mulligan's Bar and Grill, Oregon Bowl, Ace's Main Tap, and Charlie's Main Event.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Class B fermented malt beverage and Class C wine. Keen Beans, which is the LLC, which is a Firefly Coffee House. La Roca's Pizzeria, Maria's Pizza, Scout Enterprise, which is Holstein Kitchen.
So moved.
and Celebrations Banquet Hall. Are we okay on that one?
So that one, there's still 2 outstanding issues for Celebration Banquet Hall.
So that's not part of it tonight.
Correct. There were 3 outstanding issues, that we didn't have a CUP signed, we haven't seen the lease, and then she still owes us personal property. I'm sorry, she owes us money, and so.
Okay.
I think what we discussed was that the board would
It was
act
a
on it
contingency.
conditionally. So why don't you pull that one off and we'll deal with it separately.
Okay. Okay, so we got a motion and a second, right?
We got a motion.
Okay, so let's go
Second.
back. It's going to be Firefly, La Roca's, Maria's, and Holstein Kitchen. So that would be the motion.
Scout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So any questions on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we will go to
So for celebrations.
Celebration Banquet Hall LLC.
Yeah, and I think the conditions, so I think the recommendation is, from staff, is that the board approve the renewal on the conditions that first, she be issued her Class B license that's already been granted, and that can't be issued until, by the way, she pays some fees that she owes the village, and she demonstrates that she has a leasehold interest in the property. So the only condition you need to worry about, because the clerk will handle the making sure those conditions are met. So the conditions for the board, the condition for the board is approval of the renewal on the condition that the previously granted license actually be issued by the clerk.
Okay.
That's what we discussed.
So we need that motion, please.
So moved. That's what we discussed.
Second.
Thank you. Are there questions on that or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Where are we?
Got one more yet, one more.
Thank you. Knew I was going to miss that one. Class B fermented malt beverages. This is Orcon LLC by Jennifer White, and this is Pizza Pit.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, I think you're ready for 16.
Move adjournment.
You're out of order. That's down a ways.
Sorry.
Feels like it should be. Minutes not requiring action, April 7, 2016, Fire EMS Commission minutes. Discussion regarding ambulance purchase.
Oh, we gotta do new
The
licenses.
Chief's May monthly report, and recognizing Phil Van Campen for his leadership and guidance while serving as chair of the commission. So we've done that. Anything else to do there, Mike?
Just that the,
Ambulance?
right, Jeff, the commission approved the purchase of the ambulance.
Okay.
Yeah, and Phil forwarded in the packet the breakdown, the responsibility of the village versus
Right.
the other townships, and that ambulance will be here. I think they set a date of September, and then there's a penalty per day if it isn't delivered on time, so Chief Milnarek is all over that.
Good. Okay, item 17 is unfinished business. There is none listed. Item 18, new business. Approval of pending new operator licenses. These have been approved by the police department. Quick Trip 302, Caitlin Studner and Carol Lockhart. Quick Trip 372, Alicia Lewis and Stephanie Wissinger. The Legend at Bergamot, Jason Boaz, Andrea Butcher, Audrey Entwistle, Zachary Hentrick, Marissa Cook, Molly McDonald, Laura Reimer, Kelly Reinhardt, Tessa Ryan, Sarah Wallen, and Jessica Z, and Stop and Go, Brandon Burry.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of pending renewal operator licenses, again approved by the police department. At Bill's Food Center, Brent Klein, Frank Raisbeck, Patrick Ring, Joseph Shoemaker. Quick Trip 302, Dorothy Frandy. Quick Trip 3731, Joseph McDonald, Steve Nelson, Adam Gilmore, Brian Wrighton, Heather Sickinger, Ian DeWild, Jonathan Whipperfirth, The Legend at Bergamot, Brian Bonnell, Kelsey Zimmerman, and Stop and Go, Robert Roberts.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 19, future agenda items are listed. And now item 20, Mr. Bollig.
I will move adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, and welcome to the first